Good evening, everyone. Good evening. We are a couple of minutes beyond 6 o'clock. I always like to get started on time, so I would like to call this meeting to order. So I would appreciate it very much if everyone would have their seats so that we can begin our meeting this evening. So thank you. So we have the lights dimmed this evening. I'm not so sure it's a good idea. I can't see everyone's pretty faces. Or did they move all the pretty people to the front of the room? Okay. I'd like to get the meeting started. Start it off with the call to order and the recitation of the vision statement. And that is that every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Next item on our agenda tonight will be public appearances. And as expected, we do have quite a few people wishing to speak tonight. So as usual, I will ask that you all stay within or below your 3-minute maximum. It would help all of us to have a easy flowing and well-run meeting. So if you hear the beeper, that means you have reached your 3-minute allotment, and please do all you can to finish up rapidly. I really hate to ask people to finish up. Everyone knows what 3 minutes is, and everyone knows what the beeper is. So again, you have 3 minutes, and we will start right away to do public appearances. So I'll call up 2 speakers at a time. First speaker, reach the podium. Next one, please be ready to move forward and speak. First speaker tonight looks like Beth Christen, followed by Chris Carusi. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. I am passionate and excited and grateful to be able to speak about what I think is of paramount importance to the education of people in Madison and children around our country and the world, and that is maintaining and assuring that we have the highest quality certified licensed art specialists working in our schools and in the Dane County Juvenile Court system. As a music therapist and a music educator for the past 34 years, I've had the opportunity to work with children who've been incarcerated, children in mental health institutions, and in the public schools in Madison for 21 years. I've also had the privilege of being a Kennedy Center Artist in Education, and I worked through the Overture Center as an artist in education. When I was with Very Special Arts Wisconsin, I was the training director, and I had the opportunity to travel through the state to different CSAs and work with teachers and artists on providing arts experiences to children with and without disabilities. And when I first began, children with disabilities were being taught in boiler rooms in the basement. And it was just really a profound experience for me to see how little the general education teachers understood about children with disabilities and how eager they were to use the arts modalities because they saw their potency and how they can really affect and impact children's development. And when they are provided by qualified, certified instructors, you have incredible things happen. But I've also had the opportunity to see the frustration of my student teachers and my general education colleagues who see this, but they don't have the strategies and tools because they don't have the educational background to make these arts experiences as effective as they need to be to reach our most needy children. So I could cite statistics, and a great one is the 2011-12-13 comparative study at Brigham Young University about the difference between arts experiences offered to children by certified licensed staff versus those who are not, and I'd be glad to forward that to you. But I think what's more important is the story that I want to tell. I stood on one foot this week while I executed a music program for approximately 40 children, ages 4 to 17. In doing that, I had to have the understanding of their developmental needs. I had to be able to manage behavior. I had to be able to understand how music is designed to impact the children, to empower them to feel creative, and to really build an experience that was learning and heartfelt. In that group, we had little kids signing and making nature songs. We had older kids playing ostinato rhythms. We had other kids playing very basic harmonies, while other kids added harmonies on top of that. It took an experienced teacher to offer that kind of experience, and that's what the children in Madison deserve.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Carusi. I'm here tonight representing Madison Scape. I want to thank the Board of Education and also all the leaders at Isthmus Montessori for the tremendous amount of time and work that has gone into the proposal and contract that's before you tonight. This has been 5 years in the making. And I'm not here to criticize the Montessori method or any of the people with IMA. However, I am here tonight to urge you to vote no on the Isthmus Montessori contract. This contract has many, many serious problems. There are going to be speakers tonight who will address these problems, so I'm not going to try to delve into every one of them. But the bottom line is that this contract, not the application that came before it, is the legally binding charter that the board is entering into with Isthmus Montessori, and we need to get it right. It's almost impossible once you've opened a school to go back and say, oops, we messed up, let's close this school, because everybody loves their school. It is gut-wrenching to take a school away from people. So let's take the time to get this contract right now. It's not ready to pass tonight. Take the time to address the many, many problems, such as staffing issues, such as the $500,000 budget deficit that people are going to talk about tonight. As a member of the district's Guiding Coalition on Behavior, I'm particularly concerned about inadequate staffing in the area of student services. There's 1.5 FTE in this school to provide school nursing and counseling support and social workers. And if this school really does achieve the goal of meeting the needs of our neediest students, that's not enough people to actually provide behavior support and provide social services to kids who need them. Another major issue with this contract, which just came out this weekend and which I think should be an absolute hands-down deal breaker, is the handbook waivers, which are found on page 19 to 20. I'm not an employee of the district. No one in my family is an employee of the district. I don't have anything personally riding on the handbook. And yet as a parent, everything for my children rides on this handbook, because a teacher's working conditions are a child's learning conditions, and our teachers need to know that they have a place at the table and a say in any changes that happen to the handbook. If we allow this contract to move forward with handbook waivers and we haven't sat down with MTI, we are setting an extraordinarily dangerous precedent for future relationships with our teachers, for being able to attract teachers who want to be in the district and who know that there's a strong union in this district and an administration and a board that responds to that union. For those reasons and many more which you will hear tonight, we need to ensure that the Isthmus Montessori contract sets this charter school and sets the district on the path to success. And for that reason, I ask you to please not pass the contract tonight. Vote no. Take the time to get it right. Ensure that the board has meaningful input into the process of getting it right, that the decisions are ultimately vetted through the board. And again, vote no tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, Aaron Proctor, followed by Elizabeth Doyle.
You didn't give me my heads up, James. Okay. Welcome again. I'm here again. I'm here to express my concerns to moving forward with making Montessori a part of MMSD public schools. As a now former SEA and currently in the hiring pool as a teacher from MSD, I'm well aware of the diverse needs of special education students. Those of us that work in special education are acutely aware of the differences in needs of our special education students. One child may need once-a-week speech therapy, another may need one-on-one support. We know Madison has the lowest teacher-to-student ratio when it comes to special ed. We know that is because we value children and strive to meet the needs of a very needing group. We also know that we don't have the resources to meet all those students' needs currently. It is that very issue that concerns me the most about the Montessori school. Montessori averages a little under 9 special education students per special ed person. MMSD Middle School, the average is a little over 5. This is a very large difference when it comes to the needs of special ed students. The lottery system should also create a more diverse student base than currently exists in the Montessori school. With that comes more diverse special ed needs students. An average of 9 special ed students per 1 special ed teacher will be extremely inadequate to meet the needs of these students. For that reason, I feel a no vote at this time is warranted, and I hope that you think about this and do it right, as people before me have said. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Elizabeth Doyle, followed by Jen Greenwald.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Doyle. I'm an art teacher in the district, and I just want to start by saying that I have a little one-year-old and son, and I wish I could have him go to a Montessori preschool or an early childhood, but I do not think it's the best thing for the district to pass this contract. Personally, I would love to have that opportunity for him, but looking at the big picture and what the district has set are our priorities in terms of equity, in terms of looking at the opportunity gap that's there that also has existed before in terms of accessing arts programs. We're working on helping to strengthen that access and equity rather than take it away. And as an art teacher, obviously, I'm kind of interested in that aspect because I think art is really important. And I know that having the years and years and years of training that I do and delivering the kind of curriculum that I do and that my colleagues do in terms of standards-based sequential curriculum, that has been really important to our district in terms of the directives that I've been given, so that every student has access to a really strong arts education. And a certified specialist can give that in a way, can provide that in a way that not necessarily a regular classroom teacher can. So I want to say for that reason alone, I would ask you to vote no on this proposal, on this contract. And I think that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Jen Greenwald, followed by Katie Walsh.
Hi, I just want to say this always makes me really nervous, even though I stand up and speak in front of kids every day. You guys are very intimidating, so I'm going to read. Sorry if you're looking at the top of my head. Tonight, you may vote to turn a private school into a public one. I urge you to vote no on the contract tonight and instead focus on how we can better support the learning of the vast majority of students in our district who attend our public neighborhood schools. One of the things I admire about Montessori is how even young students have voice and choice over what they study and how they learn. So while you on the one hand support this flexible child-centered programming for a very small number of students, you continue to constrain the children and teachers in the rest of the city by requiring more and more standardization. When I first started teaching, I was so grateful for everyday math. I was new and overwhelmed by how much I still had to learn, and I was perfectly happy to follow the teacher's guide for one subject. I have since spent years learning how to teach math and developing a curriculum that works. I take classes and I read scholarly journals about best practices. Then I spend time assessing my students and I apply what I know in ways that meet their unique needs. And yet I am now required to use Bridges to teach math, Lexia to teach reading. Add that to Second Step, Mondo, FOSS, and Social Studies Alive, and I have a script for every subject I teach. The problem with the theory that anyone can teach given a script is that you don't get quality instruction that is responsive to students. Any one of you could come to my classroom and follow any of these scripts. And if you follow the scripts and the lesson directions, you'll be teaching with fidelity. But your students will not follow any script because they are unique, amazing individuals with various strengths and struggles, and they grow and change right before your eyes. Good teachers get to know their students and they adapt their teaching based not on what is in the teacher kit, but on what their students need academically, emotionally, and socially. When Jen first arrived here, I sent her an article about, it was really brazen, about how San Diego schools spent all this money buying packaged reading curriculum and saw no increase in test scores. Then they did something radical. They invested in real professional development and their students became proficient readers. Rather than turning a private school into a public one or spending 1 more cent on packaged curriculum, let's focus on having trained, experienced teachers who plan their teaching based on the children in their classrooms. Let's have all of our classrooms be as flexible as those in Montessori schools. Classrooms that are prepared by teachers to encourage independence, freedom within limits, and a sense of order, where children, through individual choice, make use of what the environment offers. Let's have teachers who match appropriate lessons and materials to the sensitive periods when learning is most naturally absorbed, not based on what it says in the scope and sequence. And let's do this for all children. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Walsh, followed by Andrew Wadey.
Katie Walsh, art teacher at John Muir, starting next year. I want to encourage you before I start to really read all of those emails that you got very carefully. There are so many of my colleagues that I talked to that were not able to make it tonight, and we're really sad they were not able to make it. Please read their words carefully. And just like Jen, I get a little nervous, so I'm reading. It is reasonable to support the Montessori model, and our community would be lucky to have the passion from these Montessori parents in our district. Having said that, the contract is not something our education community can support, and you have a responsibility to vote no on this contract tonight. There are so many issues and questions regarding this contract, yet I'm aware that there's at least one board member who believes that the problems being pointed out in the contract cannot be resolved once they are up and running, and do not feel that we will ever have a perfect contract. We may not ever have a perfect contract, but this contract is disrespectful to every MMSD employee in this district. This is not just a charter proposal. This is a case study of our values and beliefs of our handbook. It is not okay to give any contract waivers from this handbook. When you, as a board, make a decision, you need to honor your promises. If you give the waivers to this school, you are basically telling the rest of us that our voices don't matter and that you don't honor the handbook and the handbook process. Many of us won't be able to trust you as board members or administrators, and our superintendent, again. You will be burning bridges and destroying relationships with your teachers. There are others to speak on these issues tonight, and as a certified licensed art teacher, I would like to focus on my expertise in this area. Paraphrasing from the charter contract that states that they will not be using certified and licensed arts teachers, and that they claim this is because art music is integrated, and that they are art supporters, and that this is sufficient for arts education. As the school board and a wider community, we have already decided that this is not what arts education looks like in our Madison schools. We have an arts-rich blueprint collectively written by parent stakeholder groups, teacher and student stakeholder groups, and the Any Given Child Madison Community Arts Team. That includes representatives from MMSD, Boys and Girls Club, the Madison Common Council, MMOCA, Chazen, Overture, Foundation for Madison Public Schools, Urban League, Edgewood, the Mayor, VSA, Full Compass, United Way, MSCR, and so many more. The reason this group formed is very clear, as quoted from their website. There is currently an opportunity gap in arts education that exists among K-8 students in MMSD. Some students have the opportunity for multiple arts experiences nearly every day, while others have very little. In order to create equitable access to comprehensive arts education for K-8 students, the community needs to increase its resource coordination and capacity, particularly with resources for certified arts specialists, arts integration in non-arts classrooms, and partnerships with community artists and organizations. Did you notice they listed certified arts specialists and arts integration in non-arts classrooms and partnership with community artists and organizations as being important in this group, in this work? There is no or. We need embedded arts and arts integration, as the Montessori model calls for, and certified arts specialists. You have an obligation to vote no tonight. This is a litmus test for the trust and respect for your teachers.
Thank you. Andrew Wadey, followed by Amanda Bell.
Good evening. I'm Andy Wadey, president of MTI, and I'm speaking on behalf of our members regarding a concern that we have about this proposed contract for the IMA charter school that comes before the board tonight. Our concern centers around the language in the proposal that asks for the waivers from the MMSD employee handbook in the areas of early release, planning time, and conferences specifically. We recognize that the Montessori model does involve some variances from a more traditional school model, and that the employee handbook may or may not support these differences. However, we're concerned that allowing any group to enter into a contract with MMSD and change the employee handbook without honoring the processes that have been approved by the Board of Education and supported by district administration and MTI violates the processes that have been established by these groups. Our employee handbook process has successfully bridged the transition from collective bargaining agreements to the employee handbook system imposed by Act 10. The collaborative work done in establishing that employee handbook has helped set the tone for work done in a number of critical areas that are for our students and staff. We believe that to allow the employee handbook process to be supplanted by a charter contract sets a dangerous precedent for our district and the employees who work here. As I said, the changes may be necessary to support a specific type of instruction, but we have an established process to discuss this and make these changes. We are in the process of scheduling employee handbook meetings between administration and MTI for August. It seems that it should be possible to add the employee handbook language proposed in the IMA charter proposal to the agenda and have the conversations that would address these concerns. So we ask that the Board of Education vote to delay action on this contract until the employee handbook process can be fully completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Bell, followed by Elizabeth Creech.
Hi, my name is Amanda Bell, and I'm here to talk as the mom of Lawson, the cute little tiger-faced kid that's running around somewhere, and I'm probably going to cry. So I'm here as a supporter of the Isthmus Montessori School. Lawson is an amazing 4-year-old boy, and these days I drop him off at a Montessori preschool. And next year it'll be a Montessori 4K, and every day he comes home and tells me he loves his school. He tells me that he wants to be a teacher there when he grows up, so he never has to leave. And when I asked him what I should tell you about why it matters, he said, and this is his words, because we don't fight each other, and because if we do something wrong, the teachers help us make it right together. Montessori is a community where he feels safe, he feels cared for, and he feels valued. A year from now, I'll drop him off at kindergarten at a Madison public school, and because he's Black, we'll begin an 18-year fight against the statistics. My privilege does not extend to him, and I'm afraid. The gaps, the disproportionate suspensions, the police involvement keep me awake at night, and I know they keep you awake too. I have never been more proud as when Madison made the decision to allow the Isthmus Montessori plan to move through. For me, that means that we're committing together to try something new, to innovate, to learn together. It's not perfect, it never is, but trying something new and innovating is something that makes me feel proud of our district and of ourselves. Whether Lawson is ever able to attend Isthmus or not, adding it to the Madison Metropolitan School District makes his future brighter, because what we learned there was outside of its doors. I really also feel a need to talk really specifically about Montessori and special education, because I hear a lot of things that don't feel right to me. I finished my master's degree in special education at UW-Madison. I spent 10 years teaching in Madison public schools, both at Sherman Middle and West High. I've spent the last 10 years working with families and folks with disabilities at the Weissman Center, which is a university center for excellence on developmental disability. And what I think about when I think about Montessori is that that's what I would want for my child if he needs it. When I thought about it for Lawson, I did my homework, because I don't know what his learning needs are going to be. I asked really, really, really hard questions of Isthmus staff. I read way too many books, and I topped it off with a 4-week intensive this summer to learn Montessori method. And here's what I left with. Montessori teachers have more training and differentiation than I ever got in my master's degree. Much more experience than the one inclusive schooling class required of regular education folks at UW-Madison. Montessori materials and method are individualized, and teachers work hard to make that even more individualized to meet each student's needs. It doesn't make special education teachers unimportant, just the opposite. It would make us incredibly effective, and the opportunities we would be able to give our students with those tools are something that I can only hope for my kids and for others. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Creech, followed by Ollie Maudreau.
Thank you for having me. Our children deserve access to any approach to learning that empowers them as students no matter what their income. Montessori schools allow for students-led learning and give young people the opportunity to explore their interests. This is really important for students of color who often can't see themselves reflected in their curriculum, so getting to have a self-determined curriculum is a simple way to make sure curriculum is inclusive. I'm a product of MMSD. From kindergarten to graduation, I went through the perverse system of being the token Black child. My peers of color were sent into the hallway for being themselves, while my white peers stayed getting in trouble and had parents who could afford to bail them out before the schools were notified of their misdoings. On the other hand, my peers of color never had a chance to protect their innocence and were deemed guilty by MMSD staff and teachers. I have planned to leave Wisconsin to attend optometry school, and knowing what I witnessed as a student here myself, I don't see it reassuring to bring my child back here to attend MMSD. There's not enough reflections of myself and my child in MMSD to run back to a space not inclusive for all of our children at any given moment. I want my child to have access to a public Montessori school. The only way that will happen is if this board is courageous enough to do what has not been done before. I want to thank you all of the MMSD School Board for bringing the Montessori method to the Madison Public Schools.
Thank you. Ollie Maudreau, followed by Folo Miller.
I want to thank you all for your leadership, for being here tonight. It's going to be a long night. I want to start out positive, but there's something that happens in these conversations, and it always kind of gets to me. It's like when you describe a population of children as neediest, it's so obvious that you don't identify with them. It's so obvious that you don't see yourself that way. I identify with young people of color who are disproportionately ill-served by this school district. It's hard to do something new. It's courageous to do something new. To step forward and do something and know that it won't be perfect and hope that you make the right decisions is complex. It's something that you need to do critically and thoughtfully. But it's an opportunity. I think the people who don't want this school district to change are the people who this school district works for, and that is not everybody. That is not kids like my own. It is not kids like me. It is wonderful if kids are accessing the things that they need at MMSD schools, but for students of color, having access to an education that is meaningful and empowering and inclusive is out of reach far too often. I believe that we have the opportunity with Isthmus Montessori School to examine the way we provide educational opportunities to young people. We have the opportunity to move forward and challenge the way we've always done things, and we should. So many people who have spoken tonight are benefiting from a school district that is so hard on some students. I sent my daughter to MMSD and she began biting her hands and crying before school and describing herself as difficult and getting in trouble for things like going to the bathroom without asking. She was given a standard test in 4K that she cried through, and that was supposed to be somehow reflective of her understanding of the alphabet. So we removed her from that because we had the option, and the hardest thing about doing that was knowing that other parents didn't have that opportunity. Paying for Montessori school is a barrier to too many families. You have the power to eliminate that barrier, and you should. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please, Flolo Miller, followed by Julie Olson.
Like some of the other speakers, I'm here to thank you for your leadership in the progress you've made to bring Montessori to this district. Thank you for establishing a very thoughtful, intentional process for schools to promote an instrumentality. Thank you for taking the time to learn about Montessori, to look at the recruitment plan and the specifics of this proposal, and thank you for voting to approve a motion, I'm quoting from the minutes, to approve a contract with Isthmus Montessori Academy, a charter school, to operate for a 5-year period. Thank you for working to draft a contract that does meet the district standards to bring the school to compliance, and a contract that will terminate an existing private school to make room to establish a brand new public school. Madison has a 50-year record of excellent Montessori education, and as part of the Montessori community, I wish I could be proud of that, but instead I'm saddened because that 50 years has been marked by exclusion. Because I'm part of the Montessori community, I believe that we need to all see all children as our children. And the Montessori method might not be something that other families, that every family would choose for their children, but it is an evidence-based, research-supported, cost-effective, inclusive, non-sectarian form of education, and for that reason, all families should have the option to consider whether Montessori is right for them. In response to MMSD's Vision 2030 survey, 72% of all responses asked for Montessori to be incorporated into the district. At the official public hearing for this proposal, 40 people spoke in support and no one spoke against. The night of the vote in January, 24 people spoke in support and no one spoke against. I also want to thank the district for responding with agility to challenges posed by the last 2 state budgets, most recently for acting to protect your workforce's health care and prior to that, partly through movements like this school to fight privatization. You know, MMSD's administration, Mike Berry's office, put out a press release in 2015 saying that a non-instrumentality charter school founded under the authority in Wisconsin Statutes 11840, paragraph 2X, would cost the district $10.5 million over 5 years. Thank you for investing a fraction of that in this school that represents the same number of children over the same time period as that estimate. We're ready to get to work. My children and I are ready to walk up and down Packers Avenue and Schlingen and Loftsgården. I don't know who named the streets over there by IMA, but I'm gonna be walking them. We're gonna knock on every door and hand out flyers at every block party and let our neighbors know that finally Montessori is an option for their children too.
Thank you. Julie Olson, followed by Gail Rosen.
Thank you, and thank you for your speech. I agree, we need to open up and be welcoming of all families. In fact, that's one of my concerns. I'm Julie Olson, I teach at Hawthorne Elementary, and in 1990, Hawthorne reopened as a creative arts magnet school, the only one in Madison, Wisconsin. And we were child-centered. We looked at Montessori literature. We looked at Lincoln's Open Classroom, put it all together. A group of us visited creative magnet schools in Milwaukee. Katie Mead Griffiths, who was an art teacher. I was the regular ed teacher. Libby Burmaster was our arts director at the time, who later became the superintendent of public instruction. Jane Belmore, who was a superintendent of Madison Public Schools, was in the car, and we went and we researched and we found that these schools that were flourishing with a very diverse population infused arts in their classrooms, but they also provided arts, music, phy-ed, and dance and drama in some cases, taught by professional specialists. When we opened at Hawthorne, we actually had art, music, PE, and a dance teacher. We had show choir, or you know, something like that, sort of on a young kids level. It was really wonderful. And I agree, constraints of our current school directions have cut back on the ability of us to provide arts-infused education in the regular classroom, but I still believe it's the best way to go. My concerns with signing the contract as it is tonight is how will we ensure quality ed if there isn't art, music, and PE taught by specialists? How will we ensure equal access when and make sure that the demographics reflect other Madison schools? And then if they do, how do we support those students who are ELL speakers or special needs students at the level that they require? Was that the ding? Oh, okay. Okay. So I really believe that we can look at this contract and see if there are ways to modify it, but the numbers really aren't adding up at this stage. And when it looks like fundraising is supposed to be coming from the from IMAC to support, it just hasn't been in the past at the level we would need. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Rosen, followed by Chet Agnew.
Thank you to the board for your commitment to Madison schools, and to everyone who's come here tonight. It's heartening to see how much we all care about our kids. As a teacher in training, I am very concerned about the de facto segregation of public schools that occurs when charters draw more resourced, often white students, away from the neighborhood schools, along with funding and resources. When that happens, all students lose out on the benefits of diverse classrooms, and the opportunity gap, which is already the great shame of our public school system, widens. Additionally, while I respect parents' desire to find the best school for their children, the understaffing of special ed and bilingual teachers would leave this school under-equipped to appropriately serve some of the most vulnerable students in the district, and that is one of the greatest responsibilities of our public schools. For these reasons, and for others you have heard addressed tonight, I ask you to vote no on this contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Chet Agnew, followed by Steve Strong.
Hi. Thank you to the board members for dedicating much of your lives to public education as a product of Madison Public Schools myself. I'm not here to speak about the validity of Montessori schools as a choice. I think they might be a great choice for many families, as we've heard tonight. But I am here to urge you to vote no on this contract because I think we really need to do this right if we're going to do it and make it a public school. As we all know, the need to address the achievement gap in our city and our county is dire, and the need to be innovative with instruction is also really important, but we need to do so in sustainable, long-term ways that are accessible to all of our students, and this contract does not appear to do that. It cannot be accessible if not all students will be supported, and the lack of adequate staffing concerns me. There will be 48% fewer special education staff per student with a disability based on the target special education numbers as compared to the transportation zone, and 44% fewer English learner support staff per student. And these numbers are just concerning because those students are some of our most vulnerable, as people have said. Finally, the lottery system does concern me also, as students who wish to enter the 4K system have to be put in the lottery at age 3. And many families may not know this and may not be in a position to do that, especially if they live in another part of the town and move into that community. If they don't meet that deadline, then those families will not have access to this school either. That's especially a problem, yeah, for families who don't live in the area and families whose primary language may not be English. Yeah, and just lastly, I'd really like to echo that our existing public schools need to do better for our communities of color. That's very clear, especially hearing for the many people who have spoken here tonight. But doing this contract, approving this contract, just to approve based on the success stories, but not looking at all the issues and not looking at the ways that it may not be accessible to all of our communities, I don't think is the right method. So I think we really need to do it right, and I think we should do it, but yeah, do it right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Steve Strong, followed by Nicole Kuss.
Hello, my name is Steve Strong. I'm a member of Democratic Socialists of America. I'm a member of the TAA and the MTI, IWW, and a copy editor at Left Voice, as well as a teacher in the district. Personally, I think this meeting is pretty boring. I don't think there's much disagreement here if we listen closely to the heart of what people are saying. I am against voting for this contract as it stands, but I'm 100% in favor of the complete nationalization of education in this country, expropriating all private schools and bringing them under public control. But the question is, for who, on what terms? And these contracts should reflect a commitment to worker and community control. And this contract does not, as it stands. The vote must be postponed. You know, if you want to solve the problems in this city, I did student teaching both at Madison Country Day School and Neon. Send the Neon kids to Madison Country Day and send the Madison Country Day kids to Neon, and we'll have equity. Okay? I wasn't here in 2011, but I got here as fast as I could. And I don't like what I see in this city. A city that's given up, that doesn't want to fight anymore, and we're in a new period. Yeah, keep smirking. Really funny. Yeah. This is a city that should be a center of resistance. Should be a center of resistance. We're in a new era with Trump and a Secretary of Education that would probably approve of what you're doing if you vote yes tonight. And that's a shame. That's not what this city has been historically. And you have a chance tonight to not let that happen by postponing the vote and let there be a new consensus between the most oppressed and the working class of this community to make this contract better to support worker and community control. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole Kuss, followed by Thomas Gunderson.
I simply want to say, be bold in the decisions you make and take this towards expanding access. I want my children to go to Montessori school, but I will not be able to send them because the cost is a barrier to my family. You all have the power to remove that barrier for me and families like mine. I have listened to the leadership at the school speak for months about all they will do to ensure that the school is inclusive. This is a conversation that Madison Public Schools need to be having. Thank you for committing to the school and ensuring that it's executed with integrity. Thank you for working in partnership to craft this contract. Bringing Montessori education to Madison Public School is a profound opportunity for families like mine.
Thank you. Thomas Gunderson, followed by Tim Scheffler.
Hello, I'm Thomas. I'm currently an undergraduate student at the university, but perhaps someday I may be a math teacher at one of your schools in Madison here. I'm speaking here to voice that I also share concerns with this contract. From those that have already spoken here tonight, it is clear that many feel that this process is being rushed and that this proposal should be voted no on tonight, so that further reflection and essential considerations can be made. We are living in tumultuous times and forces are shifting all around us, but through democratic, inclusive deliberation, I believe we can make it through anything and rise into a more just and equitable community together. That brings out the best in all of us, our students, our teachers, and our community. Please vote no on this contract tonight so we may have that discussion and we may take the right path forward. The math isn't there and our values and commitments should never be sidelined. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Scheffler, followed by Sandy Wielander.
Hi. I come here in a couple different roles. The first is the husband of a Sherman special ed teacher who decided to stay home on her birthday. The concern of that this school presents for the attendance area in Sherman is slightly concerning to her. Already, Sherman in this area struggles to find enough fully certified special ed teachers. They had several teachers on an emergency license. You're adding another special ed teacher in the same area that's going to be competing with the principal at that school to find that type of staff. And that type of problems also means that some of the greater upper level district resources are probably going to be spread between the schools in the attendance area with IMA as another place that individuals will have administrative responsibility. And if the students largely come from that neighborhood, it could actually jeopardize the tipping point for allocations for special ed teachers or ELL teachers, meaning that the workload of the teachers at Sherman have a risk of going up, just like the students at IMA may not have the same level of staffing. Secondly, I speak as a speech and debate coach, particularly at West High School. Several of my students last spring held a rally outside of the school asking the school district to focus on hiring more teachers of color. As part of the original IMA proposal, one of their goals was to hire a staff with a racial demographic that matches that of the students. Our school district at best matches the staff demographic ratio with the state of Wisconsin. Again, these are going to be teachers that are taken out of our other schools where racial diversity is still sorely lacking. And at the same time, that racial diversity is going to benefit a small group of students. Approximately only 220 students in the 5th year will have access to the Montessori school, while there are 9,000 students of color in the district. Finally, I look at this as an attorney who spends a lot of time dealing with education, particularly in volunteering in the schools. If this is a contract to take over a private school, the district did not have a 30-day notice period in which to hold a public hearing on this contract in particular and vote at the end of that. This possibly risks the contract as being invalid. And particularly within the contract, there's also a concern that, well, Montessori should be an option for many people. The district is contracting to give Montessori to a specific set of individuals, those that are part of the founding or governing body of the school. I don't think the district has signed any other contracts or agreements which guarantees an educational benefit to specific parents or specific children. A district would not guarantee spots on a football team to a donor that fixes a field or agrees to coach the school. Ultimately, under 11842M AM, the district is asked to consider three things when asked to chartering a school, particularly taking over an existing private school, which the end clause of this contract says functionally they are doing. They're supposed to consider the opinions of the teachers in the district, the parents of the district, and finally, the financial necessities that this school would have the district face. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy Wielander, followed by Luke Engler.
Hi, I'm Sandy Wielander. Thanks to the board for bringing about a lively discussion tonight. And I haven't caught most of it. I've been in the back hallway entertaining small children. So I'm going to make my comments brief as to be not redundant upon what others have already said. I'm a teacher in the district. I'm also a member of MTI. And I support the Montessori school. I want the school that my children go to be accessible to other students that don't have the money to pay the tuition there. And I think this is an opportunity we can, tonight, hopefully move through some of the current concerns that are inevitable whenever we do something new in the district and make that a possibility. I'm also a teacher. I teach in the dual immersion classroom. I teach 5th grade at Lincoln Elementary. And I am thankful that the board approved many years ago to start in Nuestro Mundo, because I believe that it's been a very strong success and it's led the district to adopt similar bilingual education programs throughout the district. That's something I hope the district might consider doing with Montessori. It's whether it's bilingual education or Montessori education, we need to be willing to try new things. And I think that when you try them, you find out what works. I encourage everybody to be brave and make a choice that works for you tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Luke Engler, followed by Melissa Dressler.
Hi, everybody. I guess what's striking me as I'm sitting here listening to today and that I've been thinking about for the last few weeks is the fact that we have a series of families who, if IMA is chartered, may not be able to continue to send their kids to the school, and yet they still want to charter IMA. I think that goes to show the good intentions that these people have, and I think that in the same way that their good intentions demonstrate what they are going for in terms of trying to make the school accessible to all students, I think that we need to look at this contract and ask if it does that, because I don't think that it does. And I think that for a few reasons. I mean, for one, and just to say, I mean, I think a lot of this is not the decisions that they necessarily want, right? A lot of this is constrained by money, and I just think that at the end of the day, this contract is not working out. We have incredible understaffing planned. The school would have the highest student-to-staff ratio in the district by a long shot. You know, we're talking about higher staffing or student-to-staffing ratios than Hamilton, Franklin, schools that are not the demographic this school intends to serve. And I think that we really need to be considering whether we're going to end up serving students well. Now, the other thing I think that is important is the lottery. We know from the research that when you have generally charters that have a lottery, end up having a more privileged student body than the similar schools in the same catchment areas. But those studies are mainly at the middle and high school level. What we have here is a lottery that after a few years would mainly only be open at 4K. That's where most of the spots would be open. And that means that you have to have the social capital to be able to apply when you're not, your kid would be, I think, you're probably 3 years old because it would probably be in the fall before, right? So the social capital is even much greater than would be needed in those studies, and I don't think, especially over time, when we don't have paid staff that would be ensuring recruitment, that we can't expect this to be a diverse school. I guess for me, those are the main issues, but I think more broadly, we need to be thinking about what we actually are focusing on when we talk about wanting to create access. Now, I hear a lot of frustration with the way MSD operates right now, the fact that our schools are not serving all students well, and that's something that I care a lot about, and that's what I plan to be trying to change throughout my career. But we don't want to follow the cities who try to address that problem by creating small alternatives that will create maybe good opportunities, maybe not, for a very small number of students. We don't want success to be dependent on winning a lottery in MMSD. We need to make changes, but we need to do it in our public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Dressler, followed by Denise Walton.
Hi, sorry, pardon me if I'm a little breathless. I have something taking over me at the moment. Hello, board members and MMSD administration. It's good to see you all tonight. Thank you for thoughtfully approaching this public Montessori option for the children and families of Madison. For the past 5 years, we have gladly worked with community members and MMSD administration staff and board members to make this option a reality for so many families historically priced out of Montessori. Despite the impatience of many families for achieving our collective goal, thank you for approaching this thoughtfully and slowly over the past many years to create the best outcome through a positive collaboration between IMA, MMSD, and the community. Thank you. This contract was made in partnership with MMSD, and we respect the leadership of the district very much. We are, as we always have been, open to criticism, and we are grateful to be challenged. If any amendments to the contract need to be made in order to make sure that all children get access, we are willing and eager to make the necessary changes. If the options are to use a lottery system following the state statute or remain a private nonprofit school, we choose the state statute lottery to reduce barriers and increase access to the method of education for so many children and families. 5 years ago, we opened a school with the goal of becoming public. That was what we wanted to do. And we followed the district's decision to go through this process. And it has brought us here today. A vote on a contract that, in working together, has the opportunity to enhance the many strengths of the district, offering a strong educational model of inclusion for all identities of children and families. These are the LGBTQ families, these are the highly mobile children and families, these are the children and families living in poverty, these are the children and families of color, these are the children with exceptionalities and different learning abilities, many of whom already know that this school is a home for them. We are committed to a diverse student body as well as a diverse staff. We've already worked with staff to provide training and opportunities to ensure that the potential future staff is made up of diverse backgrounds, and they will all be union members. Low-income families and families of color will benefit from the busing provided, and the middle school children will make use of our Madison Metro bus system as they do with other MMSD schools. This is not only a scientific method of education offering incredible amounts of enlightening instruction, it is a public school designed to rise for and founded upon inclusionary practices. Embracing problematic behaviors as opportunities for learning and as moments to offer the chance to change our outcomes, to better our world and help guide the next generation, not to where we have been in the past, but to the unlimited possibilities for their future. Thank you for bringing public Montessori to Madison. We are excited to continue working with you and MMSD, and most of all, with the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise Walton, followed by Darlene Arnold.
Good evening. It's Dennis Walton, not Denise. But just to come up and speak on behalf of and in favor of Montessori education for myself as a father and as a person who has had the opportunity to be a part of the Montessori community for the last 20 years. We all right, y'all? Okay. But just having the opportunity to be a part of the Montessori community for the last 20 years has been very rewarding for myself. I started in Montessori education from a perspective of my mom wanting to make a transition into a new field. My mom actually became a Montessori teacher at the age of 65 years old, and went into a new career profession. But her introduction into Montessori was based upon my nephews at the time, who were just born and wanting to be able to expand their options when we talk about education. And for myself, I was able to learn about the method of Montessori as a method of education that was not traditionally introduced to our communities. So I was able to not only get my mom into the profession of Montessori, which expanded opportunities for black women in our community and gave them alternative options, but also I was able to bring my children, not only my children, but my nephew and my children. So I'm 3 generations into the Montessori method and philosophy of learning. For so long, our children have not had these opportunities. I have a 24-year-old nephew who just got back from Japan 2 weeks ago, who's a Montessori student. He's a Marine. I have a 15-year-old son who started out at Montessori, being able to be educated by his grandmother, and he's doing profoundly. And I also have a 6-year-old son who has autism, who is now benefiting from the principles of Montessori. Just having options in our community, you know, is something that we haven't had. And the fact that you are able to introduce different styles and methods of learning to our children, I think is profound. I know firsthand that, you know, Montessori, for one thing, had been looked at as something that was far out, something that in our community, our children wouldn't have access to. But as we started to learn about the different ways to educate our children and found out the different ways that Montessori expands upon the intelligence of our children, it's been one of the most profound experiences that I've been able to have, just watching my children go through it, as well as my family. To know that it's beyond just sitting in a classroom, and it gives children the opportunity to expand upon the differences within their personalities, and it helps nurture who they are to become better individuals, has been one of the most powerful things. And for myself, having a son that's 6 years old who's autistic, it's been one of the best things for him. So if you do have the opportunity to expand this type of educational options to our community, I think it's one of the best things because I've benefited from it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Darlene Arnold, followed by Hermit St. Jacques.
Good afternoon. Good evening. Thank you for being here. I am a Montessori teacher. I graduated in 2000. When I first got into it, it was because of my child. She was 3 at the time. And I'm also a foster parent. And I would receive a lot of children that needed special care. So one of the reasons why Montessori attracted me was that I did a little research on it first. And of course, I found out that Montessori was for everyone. But when I first looked into it, it felt like it was an elite thing. But I didn't know because I was looking into it. But after searching for a place for my child to go and the other children that would be in my care, sometimes for years and years, Montessori turned out to be the right thing for them. So I took the training and I graduated in 2000. And as I was becoming more involved with it, I did notice that there was a lot of difference there was a color barrier. It was a color thing. But because of what Maria Montessori herself wanted for all children, the integration with not just children of color, but to integrate children with different age groups, children with different grown-up age groups, the elderly, all the things that it can afford children. It's all about the children. It's not about us. It really is about what we can give our children in education. A lot of school systems. We've gone to systems in Illinois, Lake Forest, Texas. We went to lots of different other Montessori schools just to see Well, how do they run it? How do they work it? Public and private. And there's a lot of public Montessori schools out there that are making it. This is a great opportunity for you to make this happen. And if you need more, you will find out probably that you need more than one Montessori public school. And that's a good thing. Then it's available for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Ermit, followed by Beth Kazin.
Good evening. My name is Ermit St. Jacques. I'm a parent of a Montessori child. This evening, we've heard several words. These words are loaded, okay? Access, diversity, special needs, social capital, okay? As a black woman, when I hear white people talk about diversity, I get scared because I already know that I'm gonna be excluded. Barriers are going up, okay? And I'm stunned today, just the demographics and looking at people who are speaking for Montessori and people who are speaking against, and looking and listening to parents of color supporting Montessori, okay? And the people who are talking about issues questioning diversity and access to the school, okay, are, you know, look very different from the mothers who are here supporting Montessori, all right? So, as you can see, I'm a black mother, and I have a daughter in Montessori, Ellen, and I want to tell you about access. If it was not public, I would not be able to afford Montessori for my daughter. There's no way I could have put her in a Montessori school. As an academic, you know, when you have kids, we kind of go overboard a little bit. I did all this research. I mean, even thinking about the type of stroller I was going to buy for my daughter, you know. And I did the research, and we were like, you know, Montessori is the best thing for my daughter. And I'm just grateful. I'm coming from Milwaukee, and I'm just grateful that the Milwaukee public school system has that option. And that's actually what's kept us in the city as well, okay? So thinking about access, I'll tell you about access. I'm evidence of access. If it was not public, she would not be there. And how she has thrived, okay, how she has thrived and being an independent person, and just, you know, instill this learning. She wants to learn. So I just want to say access is very important. I'm a witness to that, okay? And when you think about who ends up getting Montessori, if it's private, and in the idea of it being elitist, because before I knew anything about Montessori, I thought that's what it was, you know, because people I knew weren't getting a Montessori education because we couldn't afford it, all right? And you have an opportunity today. You have an opportunity to make a difference, to make something accessible, to open doors for students, families who don't have it. And so that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth Kazin? Beth? Follow. Oh. I guess I wanted more speakers than we have here tonight because that person has spoken already. I think that concluded our speakers for today. So, that was our last speaker for tonight. I tell you, that will be the first time for that. All right. So, that concludes our speaking session for tonight, and we'll move right on. Thanks to all of our speakers here tonight and all the information that was delivered to the board. We will be considering it carefully. Next item on the agenda tonight will be approval of minutes. Did you say? Sure we did. Don't worry about it. Next item on the agenda, approval of minutes. I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated December 19, 2016. It's been moved and second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Lori, your advisory vote, please. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Motion carried. Anna, are you there for the vote?
Anna, can you say that again?
We're just voting on the minutes.
You said aye. Is that approval for the minutes?
Yes. Okay, so motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Anna. Okay. Next item on the agenda, Board President's announcements and reports. Okay, Hamilton Middle School came in second in 2017, Future Problem Solvers International Conference. Hamilton Middle School came in second at the 2017 Future Problem Solvers International Conference. The four-person team of Rhea Ottenheimer, Myra Blayhurst, Seeger Gray, and Jessica Liu came in second over 70 public and private middle school teams from all across the world, including California, New York, Australia, New Zealand, China, India, Turkey, Israel, and more. The Wisconsin team was only narrowly beat by the winning team from Singapore. The win was a community effort by the school with Chris Barr teaching and coaching FPS. The administrative staff, parent chaperones, as well as parents volunteering to do guest lectures about various 2017 topics such as 3D printing, information security, biosecurity, and more. Thank you for honoring and representing our school district, and we wish all the students involved the very best in your future education and future career paths. Please give those kids a round. La Follette High School students win a trip to Guatemala. Aaron Smith, who will be a senior this fall at La Follette High School, is the grand prize winner of a national scholarship contest called AFS Project Change. She beat out more than 700 students from across the country to get the chance to bring life to her project idea to promote environmental preservation and sustainable practices in Guatemala. As the winner, she received a full scholarship to spend 2 weeks this summer with AFS intercultural programs in Guatemala, where she will implement her own volunteer project. Congratulations to Erin on her hard work, and we wish you the best on implementing your plan and in your future endeavors. Congratulations. Two recent graduates made final list of winners for the 2017 National Merit Scholarships. Two students from Madison Memorial and Madison West High School are on the fourth and final list of winners of National Merit Scholarships for 2017. Owen Rokowski, a recent graduate from West, and Anna Ru Saranivasan, a recent graduate from Memorial, have both earned these college-sponsored scholarships. Owen will be attending the University of Minnesota and will pursue computer programming, while Anna Ru will be attending UW-Madison and will pursue biomedical engineering. Congratulations to both of our recent graduates for being exemplary students. We applaud your achievements and wish you the best in college. And we'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Diane Williams and Eric Gosler, who passed away. Diane Williams, one of West High School's special education assistants, passed away on Friday, June 16th. She first began her career with MMSD in 1997, serving a number of schools over the past 20 years, most recently West. At West, she supported students in the community-based program, which is designed to prepare students with significant disabilities to function as valued members of our community. Diane was a highly regarded member of their special education team and of the school. She positively impacted the lives of many students, and her legacy will live on. Eric Gosler, one of our beloved Hamilton Middle School teachers, passed away on Wednesday, July 12th. Eric began as a teacher for MMSD, teaching 3rd grade at Sandburg Elementary. In the past 12 years, he had taught at Hamilton Middle School, where he was loved by students, staff, and the community. He was considered famous by his peers for being engaging, creative, and gifted. He was also well known for taking initiative and organizing annual trips for students going to Washington, D.C. Eric's spirit will live on through those he has touched over the years, and he will be greatly missed. Let us all join in a moment of silence as we remember both Madison beloved Diane Williams and Eric Gosler. Thank you for honoring our dearly departed, and again, they both will be missed. Okay, we will continue to move on here this evening, and the next item on the agenda will be superintendent's announcements and reports. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, James. I'll get started in just a second. All right. I'm very pleased to present to the board tonight our annual progress report on the MMSD strategic framework. I want to thank the board members who were at our press conference and celebration earlier today, James, Dean, Nikki. It was wonderful having you there. I want to thank the entire board for your leadership and direction. We can't make the kind of progress that we want to for our students without you. I want to take this opportunity to thank our many community partners. As you all know, we don't do this alone, many of whom were at our celebration earlier today. I want to thank our teachers, our central office and school leaders, our staff members for their undying dedication, and most important, I want to thank and acknowledge the students and families who are our most important partners in the education process. Last but not least, I do want to say a special thank you to our communications department, who has just done, again, a spectacular job helping us communicate our progress to everyone. Our strategic framework, which, as you all know, is our district strategy, is aimed at doing what we know works in education with depth, with coherence, while simultaneously disrupting the barriers that stand in our way. Everything we do is about raising student achievement for all and addressing directly the gaps in opportunity that we know lead to disparities in achievement. In the last 4 years since we launched our strategic framework, we've been trying to institutionalize a more disciplined way of working through our school improvement planning process. We've been trying to align our expectations for instruction to a more clear, common vision of great teaching that's culturally responsive. And we've been creating the tools, resources, and policies our schools need to get the job done. As you know, our vision as a school district, let me turn this on here, if I can figure it out. There we go. As you know, our vision as a school district, and James recites this at the beginning of every meeting, is that every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student for college, career, and community. A couple of years ago, we went through a process to better define our vision as a school district. What should a diploma in MMSD signify? What skills and abilities do we believe that every child should have upon graduation? What does it mean to be college, career, and community ready? And we wanted to articulate in the report that not only do we have a clear vision, but we see this vision coming to life in our own graduates already. In this year's report, we featured yet again graduates from across the district. We interviewed them about their proudest accomplishments, their hopes, their dreams, their thoughts, and advice on their school experience. I really encourage you to take a look at the online content for our report where you can read and hear their thoughts in detail. I'll let you take a look at these slides. Pretty outstanding group of students, represent us well. In the report, we try to highlight that we've been after long-term sustainable improvement as opposed to just one-year spikes in test scores. We're after classroom impact and culturally responsive teaching, and we're after creating the foundation that we know is necessary for transformational change in the future. And I want to be clear, like I said earlier today, that when I say transformational change, I mean vastly better results for our most marginalized students. results that reflect their capability, that reflect their strengths, that reflect their future potential. And that's why in the report we spotlight results for students of color throughout, African American students in particular, and why we are so focused on changing their trajectory in MMSD. So we start the report with some highlights on implementation. I'll give you some examples. For example, we've continued to provide intensive and personalized support to our 14 highest needs elementary schools and 8 highest needs middle schools. We've been building our collective leadership capacity to facilitate discourse on race and equity district-wide. We have continued to focus on hiring teachers of color, with 180 teachers of color hired since we started and over 50 new teachers of color so far this hiring season. We have expanded participation in dual language immersion. We had 539 students apply to join our first ever high school pathway, which launches this fall. We had 7,336 students, to be exact, participate in academic and career planning, 7th through 10th grade. We focused on improving parent-teacher conferences at the elementary this past year with a 95% satisfaction rate from parents. We're on track to complete all 15 referendum projects on time by the end of the summer. And we're up to 3,600 personalized learning devices integrated into classrooms in 14 schools. And that's just to name a few of the accomplishments from this past year. And of course, in addition to implementation, we highlight in our report our outcomes, as well as stories about particular schools that are leading the way with sustainable change. At the elementary level, we continue to make strong progress. Over the past 4 years, we've improved 3rd grade reading proficiency by 7 points and 5th grade reading proficiency by 11 points. More than half of our elementary schools have outpaced our goals for reading, which was 8 points in 4 years. 6 schools have doubled it. Over a third are showing double-digit gains for African American students. In schools like Glendale and Lindbergh, both schools are featured in the report. You can see that long-term improvement is also gap-narrowing improvement. For example, a 19-point increase in reading proficiency for African American students in 4 years at Glendale, a 36-point increase for African American students in 4 years at Lindbergh. English language learners are making progress. English language learners are making progress across the board as well. 11 points in 3rd grade reading, 18 points in 5th grade reading over 4 years. That means our focus on biliteracy is paying off. We're also starting to see a boost in math results. The first group of schools to use our new math curriculum saw 8-point gains in 1 year and 9-point gains for African American students in 1 year. We'll continue to work on building on the great results at elementary in the next year by focusing on targeted strategies that benefit students of color, especially in early literacy and culturally responsive teaching. We're very pleased to see improvement across student groups, but we want to ensure that we are accelerating results so that we can close gaps. Now on to high school. We're also seeing steady progress. We're keeping more students on track to graduate, with 5% fewer students having 2 Fs in their freshman year, a key indicator of staying on track. And in some high schools, we're seeing faster progress. For example, in the past 4 years, Memorial has seen a decrease of 17 percentage points for African American students with 2 or more Fs, and East has seen a decrease of 15 points for African American students. Graduation rates are also moving in the right direction. Our overall grad rate, which lags by 1 year, did go down 1 point to 79% graduating. But over the past 3 years, African American students have increased by 5 points, Latino students by 4 points, low-income students by 7 points, English language learners by 6 points. All 4 high schools have made improvements for African American students over the past 3 years, including a 19-point increase at Memorial to 75% graduating in 4 years. And our 6-year rate is up to 91% overall, including a 10-point gain in 3 years for African American students and Latino students, who are now at 79 and 90% graduating. Students with disabilities gain 9 points, and low-income students gain 6, now both just below 80%. and it's still in the 6-year rate. Our English language learners now match the 6-year rate of non-English language learners at 92% graduating. Again, we are in no way satisfied with these results, but we see strong signs that our high schools are on the path to improvement. We need to focus, increase our sense of urgency. This fall, we'll increase our attention to keeping 9th graders on track, especially African American students, through culturally responsive teaching and stronger partnership with parents. We'll also be working with equal opportunity schools to help us increase successful participation in AP courses for students of color. And we'll be launching, of course, our first pathway in each of the 4 comprehensive high schools, which is highlighted in the report. And I'm just realizing I did not pass this around. Nikki, will you please do so? Finally, I want to highlight that we're also making progress in engaging families as partners. This past year, every school worked to build stronger partnership with families. And to ensure those partnerships are linked to student learning. Schools put into use a variety of strategies, including creating family engagement action teams at every school, planning school events with an eye toward collaboration with families, beginning a new parent-teacher conference model, focused on how families can support their child's learning at home, and some of our schools even opened family resource centers. Ratings from parents improved in all 5 areas of the district's climate survey, including a 22-point increase in positive perceptions of family engagement. And in schools like Sennett Middle School, which is highlighted in the report, we see the impact of that partnership on student belonging and learning. At Sennett this year, 100% of African American families and 80% of Latino families reported that they feel welcome at school. And that is in no small part thanks to how the team at Sennett prioritizes family engagement, including the work of the family liaison at Sennett, Kim Robinson, who was at our press conference today. And yet, we have many challenges, and there's urgency to meet them head on, and I wanted to highlight one of them. Our biggest is in middle school. In middle school, we have some bright spots for certain, but we have not yet gotten the traction we need despite significant effort from district and school staff. Over 4 years, we have seen a 5-point increase in 8th grade math and a 4-point increase in 8th grade reading, but it's not the kind of results that we expect. In particular, progress for African American students and students with disabilities has been slow, and we know that they are capable of so much more. Next year, we're planning on wrapping intensive support around our middle schools to help address their very unique challenges. Teaching to adolescents during a transitional time in their life, we know requires great attention to rigor, relevance, and relationships. We'll work to build consistency in literacy and math instruction. We'll deepen the use of culturally responsive practices. We're organizing our central office support to include more targeted support for middle school leaders. And we are working on a more transformational plan for middle schools to address some of the structural barriers that stand in their way. So in summary, we are planning on solidifying the foundation that we've built. We're in the 5th year of our strategic framework this next year. We know a lot about what's working in our schools, and we'll focus on making sure that those practices are in place district-wide. With a special focus on middle schools and improving outcomes for African American students and students with disabilities. And our major district-wide focus, just like it was on parent partnership last year, in the year ahead will be on building meaningful and trusting relationships between teachers and students in the classroom, especially African American students, to pave the way for academic challenge and deeper learning. This focus on culturally responsive teaching we know is critical to accelerate results in MMSD. And finally, I wanted to highlight that each year we've released the annual report, we've had a call to action. In past years, it was focused on things like increasing support for mentoring and tutoring, community schools. And this year, the call to action is about engagement. As you all know, we're going to be working together with the board's leadership to rewrite the strategic framework for the next phase. I'm thinking 3 to 5 years, but we'll see where we end up in the end. And I'm really looking forward to this process. So we are using the release of the annual report to begin to get the word out so that people know that we'll be asking for their engagement in the upcoming year, so that we're poised to do the transformational work that we need to do in the years ahead. In all, I'm of course very proud of our progress, and there you are, and very proud of the work that the board does to help us do this very important work on behalf of students and families. So I'll end it there. Rachel wanted you to know that we have stacks of the paper version of the report. We'll bring some around at the end of the meeting if you want to take a stack with you on your way out. And we'll replenish you whenever you need it, but we do need your help getting the word out. People need to hear more about the good work public schools do. They hear a lot about our challenges, and we're happy to talk about those, but we also want them to know about our progress. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Any questions or comments in regard to James? Mr. Loomis.
Yeah, just briefly. Last several years, and this one too, I've just been really happy, and I want to shout out to our photographers and whoever edited this. This young man that's in the middle here was at the
yeah, he was great
thing today,
yeah.
And that face is a winner.
He was adorable.
And he was there, and just a cool young man, and it's the choice of the photos have been, you know, the photos do say a lot, and this young man's face here is just really, I'm glad I had a chance to meet him. Thanks.
You know, Dean, just real quick, you're reminding me, in addition, there's the paper version, but all the data, every single demographic group by every metric is all at this point posted on our website, right where the strategic framework, the annual report and strategic framework page is on our website. You can follow the links in the report to find it. But there's also additional content. We went back to some of the schools that we previously highlighted in past years, schools like Elvium and Chavez, which is where this young man goes to school, to show that those schools are still making great progress. We want to let people know that this isn't about one-time gains. This is about schools 4 years straight continuing to make not necessarily perfect, but very strong progress on behalf of kids. So lots of content online as well.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and to your whole team. I mean, you guys worked tirelessly on behalf of our students, and I think this is a testament to that. It's really hard to produce some of the results that and progress that we are making, and I know it's not as fast as you want to go or any of us want to go, but I also just wanted to publicly recognize your whole team, because it's truly remarkable the amount of heart and intellect and just plain old hours that you guys put into this district, so thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Any other comments? Well, thanks again for such a favorable report, and we look forward to gains year after year.
That's right. Me too. Me too.
So, yes, indeed. So, let's keep up the work, the good work. Okay, that concludes the superintendent's announcements and reports then, and we'll continue to move on. Next item on the agenda will be our consent agenda, and I'll move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all the motions set forth in Section 6 of the electronic agenda prepared for the January 30, 2017 regular school board meeting, exactly as said motions are written. Now, by voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his or her affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby, subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Second, and I'd like to separate two.
It's been moved and seconded. And now I will call for separations. Mr. Merckx.
6.5, the Youth Apprenticeships Partnership Experiential Learning with the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce. And 6.11, the middle school AVID evaluation.
Is that 6.5 or just 6?
6.5, I'm sorry.
6.5, okay.
I'm sorry, I forgot the point.
And 6.11?
And 6.11,
okay.
The middle school AVID evaluation contract.
Any others? Okay, seeing none. Laura, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? And Anna Moffett, thank you. Please continue to remind me when you're, the sign just doesn't do the body work. So, okay, so.
Council James, when you repeat stuff too, some of the board members are hard to hear, so thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's make sure we speak up a little bit so Anna can hear us. Okay, so motion carries 7-0, and TJ 6.5.
6.5, this is, I don't know what year number it is in our relationship with the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce in providing access to experiential learning, particularly internships, but other activities.
Point of order, do everyone have the same number? Because my 6.5 is different.
Did I?
Well, you might be right. Maybe
No, I have a 6.5.
So you guys, okay, mine is the curriculum learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Experiential learning. What's that?
Okay, well, go right ahead.
Is
Everyone
it-
else has it right, so I'll try to find it. It must be a different number of mine.
What's that? Mike is, okay, all right, just want to make sure. And over the years, we've had this contract, the results of the work by GMCC on behalf of our students have been disappointing. And so that's one angle I come at this from, and while I will be opposing it. The other angle is a more general one, which is that the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce is an organization of great resources. They represent the business interests. You can look at their board of directors, and these are people of some wealth and power. And and they profess a commitment to our students and our community and the future of our community. Yet, rather than funding these activities to enhance the experiential learning of our students themselves, they turn to the public dollars to do this. And they've done this continually. And this memo says to hire, so that they can hire someone to do this work. Well, I think as a matter of principle that they should at least be paying half the salary of the person being hired. I think they should be paying all of it, so I will be opposing this.
Okay, anyone else like to comment on it?
I would be interested in the superintendent's response to TJ's point.
I don't know if I have a whole lot to say. This is a partnership that we have with the Chamber that's been going on at least a few years. It's actually more than that because I think it predates me. We think having someone who sits at the Chamber where the relationships with the entities who can offer these experiential learning opportunities, I mean, it's highly conducive to a partnership. As you know, the Chamber is now an anchor partner for Pathways, which I think will make this particular person's duties even more important as the years progress. We see it as a valuable investment. So those would be my comments.
I wouldn't be opposed to bringing it up next year, saying, hey, can you chip in here a little bit? It's worth a shot. Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. Lori, you advise a vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Say it again, Anna, please.
I said opposed.
Okay. Motion carries 5-2. Okay. 6.11.
6.11 is the middle school Avid evaluation. We have, I believe this is the third or fourth year we've contracted with the Hope Lab for the middle school Avid evaluation. This is a tough one for me because I believe in quality evaluations and think it's a very, very important part of the process we do. But there were three things that tipped me against this. The first is that the cost of this evaluation has, I believe, doubled or come close to doubling from what we paid in the past. The second is that, to my knowledge, we've never done much with the evaluations we've had in the past. And to continue to invest in evaluation if we're not going to use it, and this really leads to the third, which is probably the straw that put me over on it, which is that continually the Board of Education is asked to fund evaluations that we are one of the end users of, and yet we are never asked to be part of the RFP process in what these evaluations include. And when I look at what we are contracting to include, I don't find this terribly useful for either program improvement or except for some kind of snapshot vision of a comparison between students in and out of the program, I really don't know what we're going to do with it. And if we're going to be spending $50,000, I'd like to have the evaluation point us towards something. We will get an idea of how successful or non-successful this is with the students. I would like to be able to drill down deeper for the student selection process, the student attrition processes, the particular aspects of the program that are working, rather than just really kind of slice and dicing the demographics on the students. And, you know, with modern day, you know, once you create the comparison group and you do the linear, the matching, I'm not really seeing $50,000 worth of work here. So I will be opposing it and hope that we can get a better middle school AVID evaluation going somehow. And I would like the board to be involved in the RFP process to do that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions, or any response to the concerns? Floor is open. Okay, seeing none then. Lori, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Okay, that concludes all items on our consent agenda for this evening. And so the next item on the list is...
I think that was 4-2, actually, Jake.
Pardon?
I think that was 4-2.
There's an abstain.
Well, there was an
Oh, I
abstain.
didn't hear the abstain. I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. So, next item on the list is the instruction work group report.
The instruction work group did not meet in July and will not be meeting in August, but I would like to highlight that on August 7th, instead of the instruction work group, we will be having a session on the behavioral education plan with Dr. David Osher, who was one of the people we consulted multiple times in the initial drafting. So though there is no instruction work group, there are important things going in on Monday, August 7th.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda will be operations work group. Ms. Murray.
We had two main items on the July 10th operations work group. The first was the long-range facility plan, which is quite thorough, covers a lot of areas with 50 schools that are fairly old. A lot of the focus for the discussion at the meeting was with regards to ongoing maintenance and the plans, the proposed plan on how we could increase the amount in order to overall increase the quality and state of our existing school buildings. The second part would be the funding on a long-term basis that would go above regular maintenance. So that will be a continued item for the operations work group. The second item is the proposed equity policy, which we are going to take action on in terms of approval of that. This was, I think, the third time that the work group had reviewed it. I think we got all the items on the table and addressed. So I am going to move that the Board of Education approve Board Policy 9001, Educational Equity, as prepared for the July 31st, 2017 regular meeting agenda, effective immediately.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Teacher.
A couple things. As many people know, that my kind of official involvement with this district is anything but apparent. Came through the Equity Task Force, and equity policies and equity as a concept is something that I've been working on in this district, in this community, for well over a decade. And I think that the implementation of our equity policies in the past have been, and the reporting requirements around them have been disappointing to many people who've been involved in this work. And I want to say that I appreciate that the administration has created some opportunities for us to do better around this. and in particular that we will have an equity tool, and this tool will be subject to board approval, and we will have processes and annual reporting that are also, the terms are subject to board approval. And I think that taking this one step at a time and going there will lead us to a place where there are the back and forth between the board and the administration about how this goes forward will, I hope, not take us back to where equity reporting and equity implementation is sometimes viewed as a burden or something to stay on the to gather dust on the shelves. And so I look forward to the continuing process around this, both in deciding on the tool and how it will be used and how results will be reported, and then once we get past those important steps, going beyond that. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that, TJ. And I did want you all to know that we've already been working on a draft of the equity tool. So we're, at least we got something on paper. So we should be poised to bring you something to consider fairly soon. And it is incredibly important to us that it is not a burden, but something that helps us lead with equity.
I'm going back 10 years.
Yeah. Okay, Laura, your advisory vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. And our next operations work group meeting is scheduled for August 14th.
All right. Thank you, Mary. Thanks for that report. And we'll continue on.
Did Anna vote? I didn't hear her.
Anna, did you vote on the equity policy?
Yes, I did. I voted in favor.
Okay, I just didn't hear it.
No worries.
All right, next item on the agenda, other reports to the board. The City of Madison Education Committee. I don't know if I can call on you, Anna.
No, me.
Oh, city. No, city.
Do you want me to give a
Oh, wait a
report?
minute. Never mind. That's the wrong one.
No, only if you want to elaborate.
Wait, is it, what are we on, the ERO?
No, Education Committee.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping.
So, actually, there was no meeting of the City of Madison Education Committee, so there will be no report. Okay, next item on the agenda, Student Senate.
We haven't had a meeting.
Must be vacation in summertime. Okay, all right. Next item on the agenda, Education Resource Officers Ad Hoc Committee.
Okay.
Go, Dean.
I knew there wasn't these other two meetings, so that's why I jumped ahead here. Anna, are you making coffee or something?
Static.
We're hearing a rumble, but anyway, I hope you'll hear us okay.
Hey, Anna, can I make a suggestion? I think you should put yourself on mute unless you're talking, because we're getting a little background noise. Would that be all right? Perfect. There we go.
All right. If you look on the highlights here, this committee, as you all know, has been set up to go over a year. And our first several meetings, we gathered some information. So this meeting, what we wanted to do was take a step back and listen to each other, listen to and talk to each other about some specific questions about what we've heard, what we didn't hear, and what we'd like to hear more of. So we spent time going through several questions having to do specifically with that, with those items in mind, and we developed through a process that Mara and Jeanette developed and led for us. So that's where we're at. Our next meeting will be coming up this month on the 26th, I believe, or 23rd.
26th is a Saturday.
23rd. Yeah, 23rd of Wednesday, on Wednesday, and we'll be hearing some information about our restorative justice practices and continue the conversation that was cut a little short in our meeting last month.
All right, thank you, Mr. Loomis. Any questions for Mr. Loomis? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue to move on. Next item on the agenda falls under other business, and Declaration of Educational Standards. I'll move that the Board of Education approve the Common Core State Standards as formally adopted for Wisconsin by the Department of Public Instruction in Mathematics, English, Language Arts, and Literacy, History, Science, and Technical subjects, in addition to the Next Generation Science Standards for all schools in the district. Arts education will align art, music, and theater instruction with the National Core Arts Standards as the MMSD prepares for district-wide implementation beginning in 2018-19 school year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions, comments? Seeing none, Lori, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, next item, high-intensity partnership renewal, cognitive behavior intervention for trauma in schools, CBITS. And I'll move that the Board of Education approve the memorandum of agreement for a three-year renewal of the high-intensity partnership, cognitive behavior intervention for trauma in schools, CBITS, as set forth in the document prepared for July 31st, 2017 regular meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Seeing none. All in favor? Lori, your advisory vote, please.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Okay. I'm going to make the unpopular announcement that we're going to take a 5-minute break right here. And before we go to the next item, anyone not needing a 5-minute break, please stay seated. I do. Okay, we're at the 5-minute break mark, so I'd like to get started. So if you would please come to order, we'd like to resume. Point of order, please, in the audience. Okay, we will move on to our next item on the agenda. Our next item on the agenda is the Isthmus Montessori Academy Charter School contract. I think it's probably fitting at this point not to put a motion on the floor, just so that it's not complicated.
I would actually like to put a motion.
Please, let me finish. What I'm recommending that we don't, and that we go right into discussion. Otherwise, we can get into a situation where we're withdrawing and adding and doing all kinds of adjustments. Now, if board members disagree, of course, you have a right to voice your opinion at this time. Nikki, you had the floor.
I think that there's been a lot of discussion among the group. There's been a lot of discussion among the people. I think that there needs to be a motion on the floor at this time.
There will be a motion.
I understand your desire for discussion without a motion, but I'm going to make a motion right now. I move that we refer the Isthmus Montessori contract to a unspecified future meeting in order for the board to develop and approve instructions for future negotiations. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded.
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that?
I move that we refer the Isthmus Montessori contract to an unspecified future meeting in order for the board to develop and approve instructions for future negotiations.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussions? Personally, I don't need any more time on this, and I'll leave it at that. Dean?
Well, there's been some compelling comments made today and even prior to today. I would like to know specifically some contracted issues that you want addressed before I vote on this. I understand that there are concerns here, and I support going forward with this because I think Montessori is this is a good option for our families to have, and I like that. The charter process is what it is. Saying that I support it doesn't mean I'm all 100% on board. There are handbook waiver issues. There are special ed racial staff to student racial issues. There are Phi-Ed and arts curriculum delivery issues. And particularly, there are demographic issues going forward that we're not assured of are going to hit. We know that in this contract that we do have opportunities to review it yearly. And if they do not hit these demographic, particularly the demographic enrollments, I have no problem with yanking this contract. Our charter schools, up until recently, we really haven't paid enough attention to them. When we did, we put one of them turned their charter in because it really wasn't a charter. Another one still is on notice, and and even though we've made some staffing change over there and they're showing some progress, if they're not hitting the demographic and enrollment numbers, it's not worth it to continue. So they know that. So this one, I'm not letting them voting it in and waiting 5 years to decide if it's going to work. We're going to watch them every year. And if it doesn't work, we start it over. I would have liked, and I said this early on, I would have liked to have set this up differently. I'd like to have done it on our own and build it slow, but we didn't. We got this, and boy, have we put them through the ringer. They've answered a lot of questions, and there's still some issues that are concerns that I think can be addressed going forward, primarily with the demographics, and that one's the biggest one for me. If it doesn't hit it, I'll bring the motion to cancel it. Now, it's difficult for me to disagree with people I respect because of the professionalism and the commitment that I know they have. But I've disagreed with everybody on this board around something. I hope people have felt that I've done it respectfully.
You have.
And I'm probably going to do it again. And I'm all right with that. But that's where I'm standing on this. So I'd like to hear it. And I'd be all right if we decide as a group to delay a little longer, but I want to know specifically what we want to discuss.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor that's been seconded, and my fear is that there's a lot of things here. Some of them has nothing to do with the contract and more to do with the charter itself. And so my fear is here, we're going to start this big conversation that could go on for hours and hours, where we could have a more organized approach to the conversation. We have administration here that should lead off the conversation because we need to talk about the contract. This is about the contract. And so right away we're jumping into all these issues. And this is a contractual conversation that we're trying to have here. So we have to address the motion that's on the floor. And so everyone around the table will get a chance to voice their opinion, but we don't need to go around the table 35 times here tonight. Everything that's been said, it's all in the public record. We've had people blogging, we've had people been in the newspapers. Our positions are very well known to each other. So I don't think we need to sit here and go 5 hours on this, but everyone will have the opportunity to voice their opinions. So, but we have a motion on the floor now, and we do need to vote on that or withdraw it, one or the other. And I would like to give administration a chance to talk about the contract, to lead this conversation off contractually. And so, Mr. Merks, it's your motion, and so we need to proceed with the vote on it.
First, I just want to say very few things, and I will try and speak only to the contract, and we'll also try to be as brief as possible. And we'll not speak to 1,000 things, but only just a few to begin with, and depending on where the conversation goes, perhaps others later. First off, I'd like to ask Dylan a question. Dean said that if they don't meet their demographic targets, he'd be happy to yank it. Is that something the contract allows? Would that be good cause for under the contract?
May I?
I mean, this is a contractual question.
I understand, but point of order. Ms. Pauley, was this a question that you were going to address in your opening statements?
I was not planning on specifically addressing the for-cause term because I've not made changes since Operation Work Group to that term.
Okay. Then.
The for-cause defined in the contract.
Can you pull the mic a little closer?
Sorry. For cause in revoking during the term of the contract is defined as just violation of material breach of the contract. Pupils enrolled failed to make sufficient academic progress under the statutes. The charter school failed to comply generally with accepted accounting standards or fiscal management, and then the fundraising provisions that we set forth. Rather than having a for cause worked into that, we added the new section 26, which talks about the review at the 3-year point. The reason that was triggered is because that's when the school would have to give notice of their intent to seek renewal, and we have a fairly well, although evolving renewal process set forth. And during that process, if it failed to meet expectations at year 3, there would be an opportunity to remediate, and a failure to remediate over a period of time, if there was failure to meet expectations, would become part of the renewal process. So it would unlikely be a material breach at that point. It would be a renewal issue.
Okay, thank you. I want to do this, as I said. There are a number of people who would like to see, who are very enthusiastic on the board and in the community about this school. There are a number of people on the board and the community who are very skeptical of this school. I think that in both this, on the board and the community, there is a belief that if this goes forward, we want it to be successful. I don't think the contract at this time creates the conditions for the school to be successful. I'm not sure if under our charter policy it would be possible to create those conditions, but I can understand that some people would like to give it that chance. And so I think that my motion is done with that in mind. And I think that one of the things that happened previously that brought us to the contract was that in January, the votes gave relatively vague instructions to the administration in terms of negotiating what was important to the board and how it was important. And these are very difficult issues, and I'll say just a couple examples in here, which is that the expectations around the budget. I think that some people on the board and in the community saw that the expectations, the contingency around the financials would mean that the school would be closer to a balanced budget, and in fact it's $450,000 farther from a balanced budget. At the same time that there were expectations around staffing. And in order to increase staffing, you hit the budget, and there's a balance to be found there. And I don't blame anyone for finding for where this balance landed, but I don't think this balance, number one, is I don't think it meets our charter funding formula in our policy. And number two is I don't think that the balance is going to lead to a successful school. So I think that negotiations, if they go forward, should go forward with more explicit, agreed upon things from the Board of Education to not bring us back to a point here where there were various understandings based on non-specific instructions that had been given. So, that's the general idea of referring. I said, talked about staffing and budget. Those are two issues where I think that the balance, that I think that explicit instructions on where that balance is. Perhaps the Board of Education believes that increasing staffing, perhaps adding art teachers and physical education teachers would be worth waiving our charter school policy around the charter school funding formula, in which case explicitly those instructions should be given to go to the...
Are we deviating from the contractual issues we were discussing?
I think we're discussing this.
I'm talking about the contract. The contract has a budget attached to it, so the budget is part of it. The staffing is part of the budget, so no, we're not deviating.
We can argue that everything we've talked about for the last month is part of the
James,
contract.
I was in the middle of speaking, you interrupted me.
Yes, I did, I interrupted you.
And I'm speaking to the contract, and please respect that.
Well, one other thing, we could have gone through all of this through the normal process, and you would have had your opportunity with everyone else. It seems to me that you're usurping the meeting here, so you go ahead and continue. Everyone around the table will get a chance to talk and state their case on this. That was the plan all along. So go right ahead.
I was asked to explain my motion. I'm explaining my motion. I will continue to do so if not interrupted again by the chair. There was one more issue I would like to speak to at this time, and that has to do with transportation and demographics. Transportation is part of the contract, demographics are not, just so we're clear. But transportation in the transportation zone is one of the ways that we can control, or we can influence the demographics of the school. We can't control them. We can't create who applies. Basically, through a contract, we have two tools to influence this. One is the attendance zone, the other is the transportation zone. The attendance zone carries some problems. We can run into budgetary issues with under-enrollment if we do too small an attendance zone. So, in light of the DPI discussions of the contract, our negotiating team decided to go with a large attendance zone and a smaller transportation zone. I respect this. However, I think that more work can be done on the transportation zone. The simplest example I can give is you take Maple Bluff out of it. If we're talking target demographics, I'm guessing that providing free transportation to Maple Bluff is not going to help us meet those. But it's more complicated than simply eliminating Maple Bluff. I saw Mary over here looking at different maps and trying to put things together, and we are not in a position tonight to create instructions around what a transportation zone and what our priorities and how that reflects our priorities and beliefs as a board. Which is why this is a motion to refer to develop instructions of those sorts. I'm finished.
Does the motion need a second?
Well, it has a
been
second.
seconded.
You can comment. You can comment at this time if you like.
I would agree with TJ. I worry on the transportation zone when it's some of the richest neighborhoods have busing, and Kennedy Heights does not have busing, and that's one of the poorer neighborhoods. But my other issue, well, there's been a lot of talk on belief, including everyone. My issue on this contract, if we're going to do it, and yes, I would be willing to vote tonight, but if we're going to do it, if we agree as a board to do it, you do it right and you do it properly. And very simply, I don't believe that having half the number of special ed teachers is doing it right or doing it properly. And that's my personal view on it, and that's where I stand.
Yeah, I think everyone on the board has concerns. I don't think anyone is jumping up and down, kicking their heels together, saying that everything's perfect. So I think everyone has concerns. I'll voice mine a little later. I would like to give Superintendent and Ms. Pauley an opportunity to weigh in here and you know, have your comments up front here because I think we're going to have some circular conversations here if we don't. So if you all would like to take this time to weigh in, if you have comments you'd like to around the contract to put on the table, I think it's a good time to do it.
I appreciate that, James. You know, I'm going to actually have Dylan make her comments first, and I'll follow you, Dylan. It's okay.
Okay, so I don't usually write comments, but I did for this one. Sometimes I feel like I have to put my big girl pants on when I come for an IMA conversation. I kind of feel like in January one group was upset at me and now another group.
We all love you, Dylan.
But, you know, we went into contract discussions with what we understood to be the guidance from the board. As you'll recall, we approved, and there's even been discussion around the approval of the charter school in January following a public hearing that gave us some contingencies to work through. And I went and rewatched the meeting again today, and that always makes me very self-conscious, but I went through and watched the discussion about, are we going to bring the contingencies back to the board, or are we not? And we had a very clear conversation that the next time the board would take a vote or take action on this would be at the contract vote. So in May, we received the information, and administration made the determination that the contingencies had been sufficiently met to at least begin earnestly negotiating the contract. And you know, charter school contracts are somewhat unique in that they're done in much more of a fishbowl. This and the ERO contracts have been very fishbowl. It's 1,000 writers at a time. But we did those contract negotiations, and we got the extension from the board at the end of June to move beyond the beginning of July because we knew we needed more time to continue to work on the contract. And we got to bring it to Operation Work Group and get feedback there. I did try to endeavor to use that feedback both through the Badger Rock process when there were concerns about just the template contract and through the Operation Work Group to integrate the feedback that we've gotten back. I did specifically hear the concerns around demographics and recruitment, and to TJ's point, did not establish quotas or set expectations around the demographics, but really tried to think through the feedback that I'd gotten from the board, the feedback from DPI regarding admission preferences and the establishment of eligibility criteria, which did differ somewhat from our understanding in January, and tried to be transparent with that difference. And establish the transportation zone, which does mirror the proposed attendance area of the contract. We did a lot of math and a lot of, well, we didn't, RPEO did it, I just followed it, to see is that the right mix-up to get the demographics we were looking for, and we went with that and offered that to the board at Operation Work Group. We went with the transportation zone with the non-defined attendance area also for the reasons stated by TJ, that it hedges against under-enrollment, right? And that has been the constant push and pull of this negotiation is budget and other, either individually or as a board, very important ideals as to what goes in and what makes a school look one way or look another. We also added that annual language around coming together as a group, which is not a for-cause denial, but it's that annual opportunity to look every year at the primary attendance area, at the transportation zone, and at the applicable admissions requirements. Because if we're not hitting what we want to hit, then we need to make changes mid-course to improve. And I would agree, I heard the feedback that we haven't given enough attention to our charter schools and that we need to be more on it, and that tried to honor that feedback. After the operations work group, I drafted and worked with our negotiating team to develop a more robust 3-year review cycle, which I articulated in responding to Dean's feedback. And then we also heard just the feedback generally about transportation and concerns about what the standard policy of 1.5 was creating. I indicated at that point I had concerns about some statutory requirements around equal busing. But what we learned with just a little digging was that we already have an unusually hazardous zone identified in that area. And so that allowed us to virtually reduce, in theory, reduce the walk zone to 0. We were able to do that without impacting the budget in any negative way, because when building the original budget, we had a worst case scenario that, looking at the enrollment numbers, what if every kid needed a yellow bus? And so by creating a 0 walk zone, it could get no worse than our previous thoughts. Finally, in an effort at transparency, I added additional language around waivers, around really the goal of that language was to be very clear that job descriptions should allow staff to know what they are applying for when they apply and to understand the expectations there. Added just transparency around 3K, around other aspects. And I do believe that the contract that we have negotiated, while whether a perfect contract exists or not, I think is probably an age-old question. I do think we have achieved what we were asked to achieve, which is to establish an instrumentality charter school while protecting the districts and, most importantly, the district students' needs and interests. And then any other specific changes I did summarize in a single document for you all.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I don't usually read Dylan's contracts word for word, and I have this. It was a good read, Dylan. I want to say a couple things, just a reminder. This is probably more for the public than the board, but we have instituted a much more rigorous and structured process to approve charters, to approve renewals over this past year. Back on January 26th, you all will remember that the administrative team could not make a recommendation to vote yes in support of the Isthmus Montessori proposal. But I made a recommendation that if the board wanted to, that they ought to do it for the 18-19 school year so that we'd have plenty of time to work out the kinks and make this school successful. And with this set of contingencies that has been brought up. And that recommendation was accepted by the board back in January. The team has worked incredibly hard with IMA to address those contingencies. We do believe they now meet expectations. If we were to rescore, and we did on the rubric that we use for charter approvals, they meet our expectations at this point, which, as Dylan said, allowed her to move forward and negotiate in good faith. I remember back in that January meeting, I cited all the things that we liked about the Isthmus Montessori possibility. Those things have not changed. We think the Montessori model has incredible potential, long proven, not high risk in terms of the instructional approach. We believe their approach to parent partnership, to behavior management are all incredible assets that the school could bring to our school district. And most important, you heard some of the public speakers talk about it today, it provides access to an instructional model that many families they simply don't have as an option. And we think that premise itself is powerful. I say that all because I want to encourage you as the superintendent to vote yes on the contract. I do think that at this point it matches the obligations that were set forth. And if the board chooses to delay, I would expect very specific direction, because to go back to the negotiating table again, just to come back to another meeting like this one, I don't think that's a good use of our staff's time or anyone's.
Okay, Nikki, then Mayor.
I agree with both TJ and I agree with Jen. TJ, I agree with why we need to reconsider. However, I'm going to go with Jen on this one and state that they deserve an answer. I'm not saying what I'm voting. I'm saying that they deserve an answer because we've gone through this. This is a multiple step process. And I think people need to know whether or not this contract is approved or whether or not we need to start from scratch. I really do think that needs to be done. And that's my view on it.
Thank you. Mayor?
I'm in favor of approving the contract as is with one change, and I would make it for 3 years. So I'm not going to support going back and negotiating. There are a lot of uncertainties. There's no doubt. But the fact is, if you try to put every single contingency in a contract, we are going to be tying not only our staff's time up, but we will be tying up the school. I don't sense any amount of trust. And we really should be entering this with a sense of trust and of hope that we're going to see opportunities for students and their families that they're not seeing right now. I'm glad to see the progress that we're making, but the fact is, and it still remains, that if you take 5 African American children in this district, 4 of them are not proficient in reading in elementary school. We need to be open to other ways, and we shouldn't be telling a successful model that has been around for a number of years. 100 years? Did someone tell me 100 years?
I think it was 105, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. That they should use this staffing model, they should have this going on in the classroom until we see that it's not working. And that's why that's why I'd say 3 years, because I want to see the emphasis on student recruitment, because that is what's going to make sure that that we get the students from the nearby areas, from the Northport areas that are applying, so that we get a demographic that reflects the school district. I'm not concerned about the transportation area. I'm concerned about whether a student that lives a mile away on Northport has the same chance of getting a seat in that lottery as a student that is over on the west side. A white student on the west side. I personally favored the area being the original attendance area that was defined, and I personally would like to see it go back to that. And then the transportation area helps address the less than 1.5 miles that the busing would need to kick in. But those are my only 2 major issues. And I think if it doesn't come through in terms of the demographics, you don't come through in terms of the financials, you don't come through in terms of the support for special education students, you know what? they're going to need to be addressed and addressed quickly. To me, 5 years is too long, even with the 3-year, oh, we'll have 2 more years to remedy. I think it has to be right out of the gates, has to have the same mission and emphasis and priorities that we have. But I cannot, at this point, go up to Northport and walk in and talk to parents there, African American parents, and tell them that I believe as a school board member that we are doing everything we possibly can to make sure that their child gets the education that they need. And I've been on the school board now, this is going into my 6th year. And the progress, I give Jen and her staff and fellow school board members a lot of credit. But we need to amplify our efforts. And the status quo is not acceptable. I want to give the school a chance. Now, let's take their efforts from writing contracts and doing this to getting out and talking to parents.
Thank you, Mary.
Procedural question. Are we still on TJ's motion?
This motion,
or are we on the other
is on the
motion?
floor, so
There's only one motion.
So, okay, I'd like to make a couple of comments. You know, when I think about opportunity, it's always difficult for me when I hear all the people come forth and talk about our current schools. Because when we think about the kids of color in our current schools, well, they simply have not been that successful. And that's a fact. And I don't think anyone can debate that. My hat's off to our current administration for the hard work on this alternative and on the hard work on raising achievement over the last 5 years in the district. But I agree that the status quo has not worked for people of color in this district. Anyone looking in the mirror to claim that it has, I'm not sure what your thought process is. All the national reports for kids of color have us rated last in everything. So for me, my position is that we need to provide as many opportunities as possible to raise achievement for all of our students. And if this is an opportunity to do that, then I'm for it. Am I sitting here thinking that this approach is perfect? No, I share many of the same concerns that everyone else shares. I don't think anyone around this table is really gung-ho 100% on the proposal, but when we look at the status quo, when we look at where we have been in this district, I have to look at alternatives, every alternative possible, to raise achievement for all of our students. It's really that simple. We simply have not done a good job. I think it's incumbent upon the board. One of the things we talk about is that when you start a school that is, you know, we don't have the wherewithal to close them. That's one of the things we hear. I think that it's very important that if this school does not meet our expectations, that we have the backbone to close it. I think that's very important. I think we need to look within ourselves and make sure that we do that. The demographics of the school is very important. It's very important, and that's probably my major concern, is that this school reflect the demographics of our schools and of those neighborhoods. And from day one, if it does not, that's not a good starting point. And I think the contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, have annual checkpoints on that point around the demographics. So although I can agree and I can share somewhat the 3-year contract, if we have annual checkpoints and we can do that annually and look at it, at 3 years, that's a point of, that could be a decision point for us. And so it's something to think about. Another thing to think about is the economic access argument. Most of the issues we have with access in the district, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's extracurricular or what have you, have to do with economics. Kids that are in poverty simply don't have access to these opportunities. That's a fact. You can look at any extracurricular activity in our district and you'll find that there's underrepresentation of people of color. And I've worked in extracurriculars for many, many years. I worked in MSCR for 19 years. I know that economic access is the real barrier. So if this is an opportunity to raise achievement for many of our students of color, and if economic access is the barrier, then I support this approach to make it public so that we can improve access for those individuals. It's that simple. I think it's important that the contract provides a certain level of accountability. You know, we have to make sure we hold those that have come before us advocating for this school accountable. They've come before us claiming that that this approach can actually help narrow gaps. I think it's very important that we hold, take them as a word at that, and that we make sure we have them at the highest level of accountability. And so I'm going to support the approach, but I'm going to support it with a really strong magnifying glass. I want to see the demographics. I want to see that from day one, and I think that we need to monitor as we go along.
James, let me know if this is the time for me to make a comment or if we still have the motion on the floor.
Is the motion still on the floor? And I see your hand. Well, I'll call you in a second.
Yeah, James, I was just going to highlight something you said about that annual provision on the attendance zone. I do think that's really important. It's not just a review, but it's an opportunity to change the approach. So annually, after the first year, if you found that district-wide attendance area with the transportation zone isn't quite producing the results you want in terms of the demographic makeup, you can change it. So I'm hoping that everybody picked up on that, and if not, I wanted to just make sure everyone saw that.
Okay. We're going to let Anna go. I saw her hand, and so we're going to let Anna speak at this time. Ms. Moffitt.
All right, thank you. I share Mary's concern around the attendance area. That was something that was added in. I understand why it was there, but I disagree with it. I think it makes it very difficult to achieve the numbers that are in the contract if you open this up to the entire school district. I'm concerned about the fact that that's opened up because we want to make sure that we can allow open enrollees into the school or have school use for internal transfers. I feel that if we want this school to be reaching a population that has not had access to Montessori, then it needs to be in a smaller area where families are not having to compete with people from across the city who are also looking to get into that school, which we've heard from many of those folks come in and speak about Montessori and their desire, folks from Wanakee and Stoughton who would like that option. And for me, that's not a priority. The other comment I want to make is actually, which leads to my second concern, is that if we look at student groups that are struggling in our school district, the group that rises to the top continually is students with disabilities or students with IEPs and 504 plans. Unfortunately, we really don't have reliable data on this demographic group. We do track students with IEPs, but rarely do we talk about our students that are on 504 plans. And if we did, I think the results would be even lower. And we were reminded tonight, and although there's progress overall in some areas, we continue to see our students with IEPs and disabilities fall far behind their peers. It's the same case when we looked at access to extracurriculars. The reason students with disabilities don't access extracurriculars isn't socioeconomic status. It is also because there isn't staff to support the students to participate in extracurriculars, whether that's world language, sports, music, fine arts. If we look at the data, we can see we're excluding these students systematically at a district-wide level across socioeconomic statuses. So my concern is with this contract, and I understand other people don't share this concern, but I continue to have the concern that there isn't adequate staffing in place to serve a school of students with disabilities, a diverse school. And when that isn't factored into the budget, there could be tens of thousands of dollars that are added to the cost. Now, if we could have a transparent look at what the cost would be, I would be interested in seeing that. So, in conclusion, I want to say I support the approach of Montessori. I have significant problems with this current contract, and I think it would be valuable to the board and to the district and to the families and to the students to put this school on in the best effort moving forward. And I don't expect perfection. I don't believe that exists. But I see some things within the contract which I think is setting up some of these goals for failure and setting up some of our students for failure.
Okay, thank you, Anna. I'd like Dylan to respond to a couple of things, and then Kate, you're on deck.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, because I completely understand disagreeing with the approach of attendance area, no attendance area, but I do want to just clarify the underlying rationale, which is not to avail for internal transfer or open enrollment because we want to avail for internal transfer or open enrollment, but it's recognizing that balance between making the budget work and having enough students to make the budget work and meeting the demographic goals of the school. And that became a compromise position that I offered the board to consider, is ensuring that we don't have empty seats due to the attendance area not filling all of the seats available. And so I appreciate the disagreement. That is something that we can change and modify, but I just want the rationale to be clear, that it has to do with the push and pull of the budgeting around opening a new school and anticipating a student body that does not yet exist.
Good, thank you.
I'm sorry, I just had one question just on that.
No worries.
So if the attendance area was defined as originally, at least in the, rather than the entire district, if the seats were not filled by the attendance area, could they be filled through open enrollment within the district?
Based on interpretation by DPI, who does review all of our contracts and send it back. So it's not like I'm just asking DPI for input, but they review them and send them back. Because of the random lottery and now the state statute that defines preferences, we can either set attendance area as an eligibility criteria, which is a yes or no. So either you're eligible or you're not. Yeah. And so we could not fill those empty seats outside the attendance area because they would not meet a core eligibility requirement of living within the attendance area. And so they would be empty seats, which is why the transportation zone became the compromise developed.
I have a follow-up question, James.
Okay. Oh, go right ahead, Anna.
Is that, Dylan, in regards to our contract that we currently have with Nuestro Mundo and Badger Rock, neither of those contracts neither of them are similar to what you're talking about. So are we in non-compliance with our other two charter schools?
So Nuestro Mundo is up for renewal, and we will need to look at their attendance area. We will also need to look at other lottery provisions there. Badger Rock, because we have not run a lottery, it has actually not been highlighted as an issue due to enrollment, and the 80% Senate attendance area, we will need to relook at if we do need to run a random lottery.
Okay, we need to move to Kate. She's been just graciously letting everyone go before her, so please, Kate, it's your floor.
So I keep coming back to the demographic question too, and I think it's no accident that that's the question.
I'm sorry, Kate, talk closer. I
can't
hear.
Sorry.
A little closer.
I keep coming back to this question of demographics too in this contract, and making sure that we are structurally enabling a school to do what I think they aspire to do and that we aspire for them to do, which is to serve the students in our district who are currently not serving well. And I guess that I keep coming back to this concern. I'll run you through some math that I've done. And I guess I'm landing on a place where I think it would be valuable for us to wait, not to reopen the whole contract, not to give guidance on every piece of the contract that is challenging, because I think there are many. but particularly around this issue that I think I've heard from every person at this table around how do we ensure the school's demographics from the get-go are the right ones. I think that gives an opportunity for MTI to weigh in here, which I think we have time for if that can be done within a couple of weeks. But when I kind of run through the math on just the number of students that we have in our transportation zone, I ran through a ton of examples today. If we had 40 white families apply to be in 4K, and we want that to be 30% of the school, that's sort of the demographics that were laid out originally, we would need 33 African American students to apply for 4K just to give them an equal chance to hit that 25% mark. That's more than half the number of African American 4Kers in that transportation zone. I think that's a big challenge. The reality is our district is predominantly white. I think there is going to be high demand, particularly at young ages, from those families. And you know, we approved the equity policy today, which is all about targeted universalism. And I would like this school to be as targeted as humanly possible. I don't think the district has the financial wherewithal to do 20 charters, right? I think we have the ability to do a couple, and they should be targeted at enabling access for the students that we know we need to be doing better faster for. And so I'm concerned when I look at the numbers. We had 66 African American kindergartners in this attendance area last year. If 100 students apply, you know, you're looking at 10%, 20%. You're looking at like one African American student getting in. That's just it's not good enough. And so I think it bears a little bit more. I know we're running into an issue with DPI. I'd love to continue that conversation. It doesn't feel like we're structurally setting the school up for what they want and what we want for them, given the challenges that we have around the lottery right now. So for me, I would like to wait. I don't want to reopen everything, but this is the one question that I still feel concerned about.
Okay, those are interesting comments. I'm just trying to figure out how weighting is going to change that math, but that's interesting.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Loomis.
Yeah, from what I've heard, I think we've got some fairly strong consensus on a 3-year contract and some more discussion, clarity on a transportation zone.
I don't think so.
Well, you're not talking right now.
I understand.
Hold on. So how do we go about, if we decide, Jen has mentioned that if we decide to wait a little bit longer, what specific, give her some specific instructions so the team can say, these are the more clarification around these things. And can we indeed, in 3 years, end it if we're not satisfied with what we're getting? And this transportation area and who can apply? That's one that we're wondering about here and we're questioning. So there's 2, and then one that I'm not so certain we have a consensus on is the special ed ratio, teacher to student yet. So we've got 3 issues there that I think we can get specific about, maybe, or at least 2.
Okay, Dylan, could you comment on the 3-year, because I think the contract is a 5-year, and we would have to go back and do some renegotiation to actually do a 3-year, I think.
So it's negotiated as a 5-year, and it's negotiated as a 5-year because the the January vote was for a 5-year, specifically 18 through 23. So procedurally, there is probably a way there. I think it's probably as curvy as the route we have already taken, because we'd be essentially rescinding the January vote as well as modifying the current contract, or the current proposed contract. Well, because it's kind of after the fact, we'd probably have to rescind and revote. Just like as far as parliamentary procedure, but I could look into it. But it's not just a straight route, hey, we can do that tonight and we're done.
Do you think there's the option of basically having termination after 3 years? So you can have it for 5, but that the district has a broad basis based on a
another
number of factors
avenue would be
for
looking at the for-cause language, and having some sort of for-cause trigger, or adding that 3-year review language. This is a negotiated process, obviously, but yes, that would be keeping the term of the contract and looking at something different in the termination during the term of the contract.
Don't we have pretty strong language now in terms of the demographics at the 3-year mark? Isn't there like 3 points there? I mean, what's the language?
There are 3 points. It is not language that would end it at 3 years. It is language that would then use essentially year 4 to create and implement an improvement plan, so that when we are doing the renewal application for that fall of the 5th year, that data becomes the indicator of meeting or not meeting expectations for renewal. So it would not terminate at 3 years.
We're looking at a minimum of 4 years before you could, but it could be 5
Yeah.
years before you
It would be 5 years because it would not be for cause to terminate.
So again, you have that language in 9 point whatever, or annually, you can change the approach to the attendance area. And the 3-year language that if they didn't meet that set of stipulations, it would trigger a remediation plan. And if they didn't meet the remediation plan, then you would non-renew after the 5th year.
Yeah, for me, my position is you know, I'm really not, for me, I would rather not delay. I would rather make sure we have accountability measures in the contract that meet our concerns, so that if they don't meet our expectations, that we can terminate. So that's where I am. So we have a motion on the floor and conversations over here. So let's, anyone have anything final they want to say before we vote on Mr. Merck's motion?
2 very, very quick comments. One of which is that perhaps my motion would lead to adding the accountability measures and those kind of languages, that through the instructions for further negotiations, that those could be those instructions, we could instruct our staff to place those in the contract if or to insist upon them in the contract, and if Smith Montessori agreed, then they would be in the contract. And so I think that these are illustrations of the kind of things where our team and Smith Montessori did their best with the understandings and instructions that they had in the changing landscape created by DPI. But that doesn't mean that we can't clarify and do things better. A couple people have said they don't want to open up everything. I agree with that. I just want to say that so that people don't think I was just nodding with that. I would continue I would like to have the relationship of the waivers to the handbook be a subject. I think that that balance between that discussion around sufficient staffing versus budgetary impacts needs further clarity. And I personally don't understand what MMSD's obligations are in relation to 3K, and I would like some clarity on that in the contracts. I read the IMA Inc. contract on 3K, and it says that we will be doing human resources, but it doesn't say anything about how many students we will be allowing in our classrooms, how many hours they will be there, under what terms are they enrolled in MMSD. So I would like clarity around that. Again, I don't want to open up everything, but those are things that at this time I can identify as places where I would see clarity. So.
Can I just make one other comment, which is, you know, I think I heard the comment that we could change the enrollment area every year if we so desired. For me, I would. Yeah, this is Kate. Sorry, Anna. I'll talk louder. Given that, I would flip it, right? I would start smaller. I think it sets them up for success better. It starts closer to the demographic we're all thinking about. It makes a recruitment plan far more achievable. If we don't hit our target numbers the first year, it's financially a little bit more challenging, but it gets us far closer to the benefit that is the reason we would do this in the first place. We could always scope it out once we know more about what the demand actually is instead of the reverse. So just...
Can I make a suggestion,
yes,
James?
Please.
And Dylan, let me know what you think about this. I would suggest revisiting 2 areas of the contract based on what I'm hearing around the table. One is the kind of attendance zone issue, which is at its core about the demographics we're going after. I hear enough concern that we just need to take another whack at it and maybe consider going with a more specified attendance zone first. I get what you're saying. We can change it a year later. And to several people's points about accountability, that we work on strengthening that year 3 language even more, with the potential of having an opportunity to, pull out 3 years in, potentially. But my personal opinion is I would limit it to those 2 major issues, as opposed to trying to address the myriad of possible issues. So I think those are the demographic concerns are major, and ultimately the board ought to be able to hold the school accountable if it's not making the desired progress and meeting those marks.
Okay, Nikki, the last point, we need to get to the vote and whether or not TJ will accept an amendment to address those 2 areas, basically. So
I would like to actually expand on that solely on special education and on staffing. It's something I've heard from SEA after SEA that says that we can't provide it with what we have. I don't want to set a school up for failure, and especially if we're going to use open enrollment, the number of individuals with disabilities is rising, not shrinking. And I feel that we need to have that as part.
Yeah, my comment is that, we're accepting some things here that many of us don't agree with. For example, 1 in 30. I don't know that anyone agree with 1 in 30. And so that's, pretty soon we're going to have a Montessori school that's not a Montessori school. If they think that they can do 1 in 30, although none of us around this table, we have put in place 1 in 18 and 20. And so, you sit here and you say, okay, 1 in 30, really? So it's not like we're jumping up and down over that. So if we're going to allow them to come in and do their approach, how is it their approach if we take everything they recommend and change it? It's just a regular school, in my view. So,
May I respond to that at all?
No, we'll be here on that.
I was just going to add something that I forgot to add, which was I would also recommend doing this quickly. And if we are to take the next 2 weeks maximum to go back to the negotiating table, I mean, the school will be set up for failure if they don't have enough time to get the word out to families, to do, I mean, we chose to have this planning year for a reason. And I would not, if the board does choose to send us back to the negotiating table, I would not.
Nikki, make your comment, and TJ have to decide if he can accept an amendment or not.
My comment is with this special, I just want to make sure art, music education is at least considered. I want on special education. I understand that we can't do everything, and I respect that, but I have to respect the will of the people. Secondly, I was just going to say I appreciate everyone's opinions on this.
Okay, Mr. Mertz.
I haven't heard an amendment from a board member, and I have heard different things, and I would say that, you know, that my list of things would be demographics and transportation / attendance area, which are all kind of mixed together, and that points to the fact that these things interact, so limiting this becomes very difficult in any real way. Staffing and budget, which interacts. The handbook, which I think is, I think that working the handbook process into the waivers and making the waivers dependent upon being included in the handbook would go a long way towards reestablishing trust and telling our staff that we do respect the handbook process, that the waivers are contingent upon inclusion in the handbook. And as I said, you know, this sounds facetious to say this, but I really honestly have read the contracts multiple times, and I am not clear about what we are committing to in terms of 3K. And I think this is you know, I have questions about the legality, but beyond those questions, I don't know what we're committing to. There's no number of, if you look at the contract for the other ones, it's like we're going to have so-and-so 4K, so-and-so 5K things. There's none of that. It doesn't say educational services. It doesn't say if these students are subject to the BEP. It doesn't say any of that. And I can't, and to me, that budgetarily and staffing-wise, that's an integral part of this plan, and without clarity about the relationships and the commitments that MMSD is making, I can't go there. So if an amendment to limit to those items, I will make that amendment myself, but if people want a more narrow amendment, then no, I will not support it.
Okay, so Mr. Merck's motion is on the floor, and which includes the list of items that he just stated.
So can I just say it maybe shorter so that it's clearer for the notes? So what I just heard was an amendment to recommend that the district continue negotiations with IMA on .1 transportation zone.
No, I would say this within the context of what's on the floor.
Okay.
So it would be to the board develop and approve instructions limited to
.1 transportation zone, .2 accountability, .3 handbook waivers, and then clarity, but it not actually change. It sounds like you're asking for clarity on 3K, not actually changes.
I don't know. I don't know what the once I see the clarity, I don't know if there's going to be changes. I mean, without clarity, it's hard.
Okay, I'm leaving that one off. Yeah. The three things: transportation, accountability, and handbook.
Well, budget and staffing. Leave accountability off. Budget and staffing is what I said.
What's your? But that's like everything. The budget and staffing is the whole contract.
Budget and staffing is, to me, the budget. Exhibit A. Exhibit A.
You want an updated Exhibit A?
No, I think that the balance is that, and particularly, you know, you say that this isn't going to be Montessori and things like that. The two places where I have the greatest concerns have nothing to. Well, one of them is the classroom assistants, which are part of the Montessori model, and I think that as a board, that if we want to set this school up for success, we should follow the AMI standards. But that's a budgetary issue. That comes out to you know, $150,000, $250,000 a year to do that. We need to have that discussion whether we want to set it up for discussion success in that way. And additionally, I think that art, music, physical education are something that that we heard a lot about tonight. And again, as a board, I think that that is part of staffing. I don't want to revisit everything, but when I
Okay, so it's time to call the vote. Laura, your advisory vote, please.
Well, wait, I'm not certain what we're voting on.
Well,
the initial motion
is on the floor, and it includes all the items in which Mr. Merckx has expressed.
It actually just is unlimited at this point.
Yeah.
The motion as stated is unlimited
Right.
at this point.
So, I mean, it includes pretty much everything we've heard tonight. So that's the motion. So.
What the motion is? Because I'm hearing Kate talk, TJ Dillon, what is the motion that you're hearing?
Refer the IMA contract to an unspecified future meeting in order for the board to develop and improve instructions for further negotiations. Moved by TJ, seconded by you.
And which it includes all the,
Which
pretty
is
much everything
now
that is
without
there.
limit
It's
because we have
there.
no amendment made and or acted upon.
So are you clear on that, Anna?
I missed the last section, James. What I got the motion to improve the contract with what area?
pretty much everything.
There are no specified areas.
The initial motion. That's the one that's on the floor.
Yeah, it has not been amended.
There is no amendment at this time.
Can I
Okay, so.
Can I try to make an amendment again? Or have I already?
Well, let's vote on this. So Laura, your advisory vote, please.
Nay.
All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Motion does not carry. Okay, I'm going to go back to Jen's motion here, or suggestion.
It's a
Could you
suggestion. I
really
can't actually
state
make a
your
motion.
suggestion again?
And I would actually like to hear Dylan's thoughts on this, because
Okay.
I honestly don't know what she thinks, but given what
Around accountability and the demographics and transportation.
correct, those
To
are the two
strengthen
areas that I would focus it on, and I would suggest that the board limit the time frame on negotiations to a couple of weeks.
Maybe a few more than 2 weeks, just to give you some buffer.
Maybe give her a little wiggle room. What do you think, Dylan?
Okay, just a minute. We'd like to get this
Yeah.
motion crafted here before we open it up.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, my preference and my recommendation has been to approve the contract as proposed and set forth tonight, and that continues to be. I hear the feedback, but that continues to be my recommendation. With that being said, we could craft a motion that is substantially similar. I would like to postpone it to some date certain, and then have whatever meeting we're going to have to give the marching orders, which would be a contract negotiation, which could be done in closed session. Otherwise, it's public negotiation, to address the areas of attendance area and or zone and accountability after 3 years. So we can do that. I think that is narrower than has been broached, because I do think we're kind of getting into every single aspect of the contract, except maybe what happens if the separability clause, which is essentially going back to square one in many ways. And one of my struggles is there is not a ton of consensus on the board on the minute details of each of that. To James's point about taking the good and taking the bad in order to set the school up for success. So I'm worried we'd be tilting towards windmills in some way and kind of chasing our tails if we continue to be that broad. So that is my concern, and I'm just trying to be very clear as to my struggle on negotiating from a place of consensus so that I know I'm doing what you need and want of me.
Okay, so it sounds like we have the motion here with the constraints on the negotiation timeline. You're suggesting maybe a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm looking at the calendar. I would suggest coming back by August 14th.
Aren't you gone?
Oh.
August
She's
14th.
gone.
I'll be on the phone, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
But,
So,
yeah, we could give ourselves 3 weeks to play it safe. Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So let
3
me
weeks.
try this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move that the Board of Education approve a 5-year, July 1st, 2018 through June 30, 2023.
No, that's not what we said.
Pardon?
I thought she was saying for the revisiting.
No, let me finish and then. Okay. I'll move that the Board of Education approve a 5-year, July 1st, 2018 through 2030 charter school contract between MMSD and Isthmus Montessori Academy Charter School Governance Council as prepared before this regular meeting, with the addition of stronger language around the 3rd year accountability. Now, if we need to be more specific than that, we need to draft some language there. And around the demographics, transportation demographics, and this needs to come back to the board by August 14th.
What transportation attendance demographics, so it's not
That's
just.
fine.
Just
Okay,
one
just a minute.
one correction, it's not 2030, it would be 2023, you said 2030.
June 30, 2023.
June 30.
James,
Okay.
Could we do it with August 21st in mind, just to play
Say
it
that again?
safe? August 21st instead of the 14th, just to give Dylan a little.
Okay, so I'll accept that friendly amendment to August 21st.
And can we, I mean, just, this amendment sounds to me like we're approving a contract that we don't know what it is. Is it possible to refer, to come back to discuss
And then approve
on the
the contract?
21st? And then
Yes.
discuss, yeah.
So how about do you want to
recommended phrasing, Dylan?
withdraw, because we haven't had a second. So it's,
So basically, we're delaying until we do the renegotiation.
Yeah, would you direct the?
So we really,
it'd be a motion
to delay until that.
postpone action,
Right,
right?
yes.
Until no later than
August 21st.
August 21st. While directing, so here's my clarifying question. Will we have any time to further clarify? The 3 years I can negotiate, I feel like I know where we are on the 3-year accountability, which would give us a 5-year contract, but with stronger accountability language.
We're on the 3-year mark, because I think the point's been made that we need to be able to terminate. I mean, that's the accountability.
The transportation zone is less clear to me because of the significant, the potential budget implications and where we fall on the compromise for the budget implications. And so would we meet to really have like our bottom line direction in the interim so that we can go to the table with that bottom line direction, or would we be left with the ambiguity?
Mary?
Dylan, from what I've heard from people, I don't think we're limiting it to just the transportation area. I think it includes negotiation around revisiting the attendance area as well. So I don't think it necessarily is a transportation budget issue. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I don't think the board is saying limit it to that.
No, so maybe for me, the guiding principle here is how do we enable as many students who currently would not have access, so students who we are not serving well right now, to have access to this school. How do we privilege those students as much as possible given the legal constraints in the way that we structure this lottery attendance zone, transportation zone, whatever you want to call it, charter magnet, whatever you want to call it, but how do we create that
And I totally
system?
get that. I guess my outstanding question is, when budget continues to be, like, is there, like, if we can say it would be this attendance area not open to open enrollment, but if it still creates a budget that we can't live with, that is a fruitless negotiation.
True. So,
Well, you risk under enrollment. I mean, that's just the case. And if the board is willing to risk under enrollment, then that's what we're doing.
He's got you.
Okay, I didn't know if you saw it.
He saw it.
Okay, so I have not finished the motion, Barb. I don't actually know what I said to begin with.
Direct administration to postpone action on the IMA contract until no later than August 21st, 2017. Directing administration to further clarify 3-year accountability language. And then we veered off on transportation and
Mm-hmm.
let's see if we can get this down before we...
Sorry, I'm trying to think while being watched. It's awkward.
And James, I appreciate if you could just say it after you hear it, because Dylan cuts in and out on me.
Okay.
I just have a language issue that the first sentence, I believe, should be that the board delay action and direct the administration, as opposed to the administration delay action. That was all. That was, you know. And,
okay, Nikki, you might as well weigh in here too.
I would, my one issue on that would be that I'd actually ask, could we vote on the original motion, which is whether or not for the school itself. I think that there are people who have strong opinions, and people here have waited a long time for an answer, yes or no. And I think sometimes you have to give it to them.
Yeah,
You go ahead.
they'll get it in 3 weeks. They're gonna have to wait. We're not ready. And I think we were
that's
asked
fine.
for that, and in 3 weeks, they're gonna get an answer.
Actually, we already voted on it. We gave the answer. Now we're just, it's a contract.
Right.
Can I have a clarification that maybe this may or may not help Dylan think about what she's doing with her motion, which is that my understanding is that the motion that's trying to be crafted is along the lines of, is it, I guess I don't know. Is it along the lines of the administration continuing negotiation and coming back to us within the, whatever the deadline is, with a new negotiated thing? Or is it coming back with, this is what we want to take to negotiations at the end of that deadline? And I don't know which one it is, and I guess that's
The first.
just,
Yeah, because
just to be clear.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, I wasn't, since it hasn't been drafted yet, it's,
Yeah, because we want strong accountability language, because Mary's point was the 3-year contract, so how do we really have strong accountability language around the third year? And everyone is concerned with the demographics, so how do we get at that? And so that seemed to be a universal concern. Now, I don't know, I mean, I can't figure the budget out here tonight, so that's a sticking point that now, is that something you can figure out here for this motion, or how do we craft it?
Right, I mean, we're trying to get to modifying the attendance area in a manner that maximizes the opportunity for students of the intended demographic groups to be selected through any lottery process that's established, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing is we want
To be able to attend.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can just say motion to reconvene and then discuss it, and then meet in closed session to discuss the topics?
no, open session, open session.
Okay, open session to discuss the topics, say at the next meeting? Is that a possibility?
No, we want to be specific when we leave here so that they know exactly.
Then on August 7th, we would discuss the specific terms and get it to them no later.
I mean, right now what I have is a motion to postpone action on approving the Isthmus Montessori Academy Charter School contract until no later than 21st to allow for administration to further negotiate language regarding the 3-year accountability structure, as well as modify the attendance area in a manner to maximize the opportunities for students of the intended demographic groups to attend the Isthmus Montessori Academy Charter School.
That sounds good. Just the comment TJ made, was that, how we started that, was that in there?
What's that?
The board directs.
The board, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
motion
yes,
to postpone.
Yeah.
The board,
Yeah, yeah.
was that?
Action on.
Yeah, implied.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded.
Did you get it, Anna?
Barb, well, we're going to have it repeated for Anna, so Barb and Dylan, you say it loudly for Anna, please.
So a motion to postpone action on the approval of the Isthmus Montessori Academy Charter School until no later than August 21st. I got ahead of allowing administration to further negotiate
regarding 3-year accountability instructions, as well as modifying the attendance area to maximize the attendance at IMAX.
to maximize opportunities for students of the intended demographic areas to attend Isthmus Montessori Academy Charter School.
Did you get that, Anna?
I didn't get that. So does that leave out that none of the, we won't have any more information in regards to budget and any greater transparency around that?
On those two items, the motion is restricted to these two items.
I mean,
So to the extent that they would impact
If it
budget,
impacts
the
the
budget
budget.
would be appropriately modified and publicly available.
Okay. And just to clarify, and when, if a new contract is negotiated and it comes back to us in whatever the timeline is, at that time when it's before the board, the entire contract is before the board.
Yes.
And so if, you know, I mean, it's not like, but these things have, there are instructions to do to try to do something new on these things. And so that's the nature of this motion as I understand it. Is that correct, Dylan?
That is the nature of the motion.
And Anna, do you follow that? I can't see your face.
I know, so then it would come back to the board for a decision?
The entire contract comes back to the board.
Then I'm hoping we would have a relatively short and sweet motion to either vote up or vote down the contract, and recognizing that there may be some values that are so deep that the contract simply can't change your mind on that, but I can't work miracles.
Okay, so we have the motion, it's been moved, has it been seconded?
Yes.
Been moved and seconded. Lori?
Can I would like to make an amendment to add handbook to that.
Well,
to add the handbook. I think that very simple language could say that the waivers are dependent upon the handbook. To me, that is language that would be, I'm moving to amend. If there's a second, we can go with that.
I second it.
Dylan is shaking her head, but.
I guess I just don't fully understand, because there is nothing in the contract that modifies the handbook or how it applies to any employees other than the IMA staff. And it states clearly that those exceptions would be set forth in the job posting. The process set forth in the handbook is regards to modifications of the handbook. The handbook remains unchanged by this contract.
The handbook remains unchanged, but employees who are otherwise covered by the handbook will be waived. And I think that simply asking that those waivers be recognized through the handbook process and bringing them into agreement with each other, I don't see this as a barrier. I see it as a respectful formality.
Okay, you've made an amendment to the motion. TJ's made, and it's been seconded. So TJ's made an amendment to the motion for the handbook waiver, and it's been seconded. So we need to vote on the amendment. So Lori, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay.
Just two?
You voted aye. So the handbook piece gets in. So there's 3 pieces in there. So the original motion. Lori, your advisory vote, please.
Wait, sorry, so now it's the...
Well, it's the amended.
The amended original motion. So it's the 3 things.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Opposed.
Opposed.
The original motion.
The amended motion.
The amended motion with the 3 pieces in, the accountability, the demographics, and the handbook. So that's what we voted on. Pardon?
Did you take the roll call?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all in favor? You up? Okay, aye. Who's opposed? 2 opposed. Motion carries 5-2. Okay, any old or new business to be brought before the board today? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Aye.
Hey, Kate, can I do that?
Aye, aye, aye.